Yeah, I still don't have any like specific intros for like these sorts of things. Maybe I should do that over the holidays. It might be a good thing to do is to just have some intros on hand and ready to go.
Amateur.
Ha, 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 ha. Just a
I
generic
mean,
intro
if
for
if
videos
you
and
if you
stuff.
want
Yeah.
a really cool intro, I can give you one of mine.
No, thanks. I don't want to end up spurging out for 3 hours on a very simple topic.
How does an intro cause you to spurg out? I'm pretty sure that's literally a you thing, not another thing I can actually force you to do through a what is it like a 20-second intro?
Anyway, we're here for a reason.
For me to
Talk-
spurg out for 3 hours.
Yes, pretty much. That's why you're here. You're here to be the autist in the room, okay? And I'm here to be the
Hey,
normie.
hey,
That's how
hey.
this works.
That's insulting to autists. It's weaponized autism.
You're still an autist either way.
It's a bit a level of extreme though. It's a bit different.
We're here to talk about War of the Rohirrim because I think we both wanted this movie to be good. We both wanted to like this movie, but the closer and closer we got to the movie, the more we realized we were likely going to be disappointed. Very, very disappointed.
I was I was disappointed with the interviews that Philippa Boyens did with Nerd of the Rings, and I love when people in like normies and Facebook comments are like, "Oh, Nerd of the Rings is very balanced." Like you are off your rocker. He is not balanced at all.
I
What
was
do you
about to
do?
say, aren't like most like mainstream like Tolkien groups now sort of like leaning in one direction?
Pretty much. There's the onering.net and the onering.com. The onering.net are shills, the onering.com are not.
Okay.
The onering.com is really cool. Onering.net used to be cool, but as we got closer and closer to the Rings of Power, they showed their true colors, let's say. Um, and then there's Nerd of the Rings, and then a bunch of other variety of ones and podcasts. You can pretty much tell who the shill is by who went to the Rings of Power premiere.
Right.
It's literally that simple because if you went to the premiere, you weren't getting the ability to tell a true review. Like if it was crap, you could tell it was crap. They're not going to let you do that. You got to sign NDAs or whatever. But there was even a clip somebody made on YouTube, which you might still be able to find it. I don't know, where it took all like what they said, and they're all just like a triumph, a triumph, a triumph, a triumph. Like they're all just saying the same word. I don't think it was triumphant. It was a different word, but they all use the same word, and they're all like, "Yeah, I'm feeling really positive about it. Yeah, I'm feeling really positive. Yeah, I'm feeling really positive." I'm just like, did you guys just get the same script? Like, did Amazon so lazy that they can't write decent stuff for Rings of Power that they just couldn't even do it for a simple like, here, use this as a review? Yeah,
No, but
whatever.
I agree. The Philippa Boyens interview was the thing that really tipped me off to where this movie was going to go. Now, I was still willing to give it a chance
The first one or
because
the second one? Because there's two technically.
whichever one she started talking about focusing on Hannah instead of Helm Hammerhand.
Was this like on a red carpet or was it in like a studio?
I think I was just reading articles of
Oh, okay.
a interview that she had
Yeah,
given.
because Nerd of the
Not much of
Rings,
it.
she was like in person with him, and they did
Okay.
like he got to meet the writing group and everything,
Mhm.
and that's where I found it. And then later on, she did one like on like the red carpet kind of a thing where she was talking about it, but I
Mhm.
didn't see that one until I practically saw the film.
Yeah, which in all of this, it was really weird to me that a guy who didn't really know much about this particular section of lore was able to go in and find specifically what it's about really easily and look through it and be like, okay, I can see like what you would want to do with this movie. Like you could write this really easy. You can make this a really compelling story about Helm Hammerhand and all that, and like how he loses like his sons and then ultimately like his own life due to this war and this outburst that he had, yada yada yada. Okay, cool. That's actually going to be like a cool sort of like compelling story.
There's a lot of really good lore that you could make a very amazing movie out of it. And you could possibly, because there might be only 4 pages, but if you want to dramatize and you dramatize accurate to the period, aka the fantastical period that Tolkien made, in within the bounds of the style that Tolkien did, you could very easily build a bit more drama and build a bit more in-depth dialogue for like a 3-4 hour movie, and it would be freaking great.
Mhm.
I mean, it was 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I felt like it was 50 hours. Like, it just didn't go anywhere. Nothing really happened. All the things that were happening were just
Yeah.
like, I wanted to roll my eyes.
Well, I think one of the biggest parts of it, and I say this a lot, when it comes to fiction, the most important part is characters, because those are really who's going to get you to invest in the story. World building is great, particularly in fantasies and stuff. It helps you invest in the world, but if you're talking about a story, you need compelling characters. And like I mentioned in my comment on your video that you did on your channel breaking this whole movie down, none of the characters
Did you leave
were
a
really
comment? I
all
didn't
that
get a
great.
notification. I'll check now. Go for it.
None of none of the characters were really all that great,
No, they weren't.
except for like Helm Hammerhand had potential, but was not
Helm
capitalized on
Helm
whatsoever.
was great, besides the fact that they made him a little too overbearing because of Hera's existence.
Mhm.
Like, him being insulted by Freka was bad enough. Like, he didn't have to get pulled even further. And her being like this constant thing, like, no, father. I'm like, okay, for one, no one believes that they played when they were children, Wolf and Hera.
Yeah,
Nobody believes that because Freka and Helm aren't exactly close.
well,
Why would they be playing together?
I was about to say they aren't close in terms of like of like friendship, and I don't think they're close in terms of distance either, are they?
No, it's the West Marches.
So like
And
there
technically, they're not even technically Rohirrim, but for whatever reason, they try to portray them as Rohirrim with like a mix of Dunlish blood, but like that's not how that works. But
yeah, it's so like if we're talking about a villain in like Wolf, Wolf basically comes off as a delusional simp the whole time. Like it's basically written like he
no.
wants
He's a craven delusional simp.
he yeah, he is it tries to show him as like this vengeful person who is hell bent on wiping Helm Hammerhand out, but the things that happen across the movie just lead it to make it look like he's this incel who's pissed that he got rejected.
Well, here's the funny thing. It's not even that he got rejected. One, he's not even supposed to be there. Like, he was never there when Freka died. Two, he was there in the movie, so it makes even less sense because he sees Freka insult the king. The king's like, let's take this outside. And he's like, okay. And then they go outside and he sees him just, and he dies. And it's like, I hit him with one hit. I didn't like how they made Helm like, you all saw it. I only hit him once. Like, you don't have to defend yourself. You're the king. And he, like, everybody there saw him insult you. Everyone there saw him hit you multiple times. Like, if somebody comes up to you and hits you 5 times and you punch them once and they go down, it's like, that's a them problem, not a you problem.
It's like the writers who created this don't understand the concept of talk shit, get hit.
Basically, yeah.
Like if you're the one insulting someone and it spawns a fight, you're kind of culpable for that.
But not even that. Like, Wolf is there and he's like, you killed my father. I'm like, yes, you guys had just such a loving relationship. Like, this, like, you would have been like thanking him, like, thank you for getting him out of the way. Now I can take over. Like, that would have been better. But instead, he's just like, I'm gonna carry you for this. And it's like, but why? What in the
Yeah.
situation now, if you heard just from hearsay, like news, like your men come back and tell you, hey, the king murdered your father, that would tip you over the edge. That would make sense, even if that's not actually what happened, because he didn't murder him.
It would have been better that way, to like skip the whole like romance option and the connection between Hera and Wolf, and to have that happen because it's a much more logical way to play this out.
Well, the
Having
part,
seen the events, Wolf should have been like, okay, maybe I shouldn't piss this guy off.
he wasn't thinking logically at that point, but The thing is that the actual marriage proposal was put forward by Freka. So like that's an actual thing. But Wolf was not there, so Wolf did not do the proposal. It was Freka who offered the proposal. He's like, "Hey, why don't your daughter marry my son?" Bada bing, bada boom.
No.
But he already did the whole, let me insult people thing, because what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. And that's why I say Wolf as a villain comes off as a delusional simp because
He's
of
not
that
even a
whole
simp
thing.
though, because like by the halfway, he's more like a yandere, just psychopath who doesn't actually like her. He wants her dead.
I know that's what the movie tries to portray, but
Like the
what it
simping
sets
was
up
like
is
the
this
very
whole
early
thing of
part.
like he's this dude whose love got scorned, and then all this shit happens, and it just goes over the edge.
It's
Like his
because
whole like start of his story is him like, "I love you, marry me. I don't want to marry anyone. My
I will
father's
not
dead."
marry any man. But it's actually funny because from the more I don't want to say woke, but like from the bad writing side of things, they portray him as an incel, like in every sense of the word. Like no one's ever loved him. He's never gotten laid. The one he likes, allegedly, and the only reason he'd like her is because she's strong and he's weak and he's a coward.
Because he wants to control her is what like later in the movie that's
By
the
that
what you
point,
effectively what you
well,
get. He's like, I knew you'd be my doom. I'm like, okay, so you're trying to subdue her so that you because you're afraid of her.
I mean, he's got this command of an army now. He has the general working for him, and the general was like the most sound of reason person next to Freyloff in the entire film. And all he kept getting was ignored over and over and over. And it's like, but if you listen to your, like, why have a general if you're just going to ignore him? Just do it yourself then. Like, you're gonna just you're telling your general to do what you want him to do, ignoring his advice every single time. What's going to happen? Well, you're using your general as a messenger boy, essentially. Like, you could have a messenger boy do that. You don't need a general.
I was gonna say, like at that point, like the general's whole role is to give you tactical advice and help you conduct an army because that's like his entire life.
Yeah, well, it's like
You would think that you would be willing to listen to that reasoning, but this is one of the things that again comes back to bite Wolf because yes, you can do the sort of like obsessed driven villain, but in this case, I feel like it would have been better. The story would have been better served if Wolf had actually been like heeding the advice of said general, and like it would have positioned him as an actual threat, an actual menace who like felt like a threat.
well,
The
if
whole time though, like I was sitting there like, all right, well, like I'm not like Wolf just comes off as completely and utterly incompetent, and I can't like see him as a Tolkienian villain.
well, it's because he's not. Even the most obsessed characters and individuals had better writing in Tolkien because he's an actual author with actual skill in writing, as opposed to whatever schmuck pulled this slop together, because they had to dig the literal dredges out to even make this moderately like
Yeah,
watchable as a story.
yeah. Well, like when I first heard the concept, my thought was, and like I looked up like the story of Helm Hammerhand. I'm like, okay, so what I should expect is like, um, effectively a John Wick esque story in Tolkien, where you just have this guy running through a bunch of mob enemies in a war. That sounds cool. Now that's like really simplifying it down. I get it, but like it was one of those things where like, okay, what I'm looking forward to really is the siege and the night raids and all that kind of stuff. None of that ends up happening because they don't even focus on the right character for this story. Of all the characters to pick, again, like then the most irrelevant character in this whole story is the one they picked. Why?
She's not even irrelevant because she was never relevant to begin with. She was literally daughter. That was it.
No, that's what
That's
I mean. I mean, she's completely irrelevant to the story. They picked the most
yeah, but
irrelevant character.
irrelevant implies to some extent that she was even an option, like as being a possible potential relevant. She wasn't even a possible potential. She was non-existent because if they hadn't told us that Freka was like, "Hey, how about your daughter marry my son?" she would never have been mentioned. What are they going to do? You know, like let's remove the one line about the daughter, the Helm's daughter being in it. Just take that out and then try to make a War of the Rohirrim with Hera and explain how that makes sense because it wouldn't make sense at all.
Yeah, effectively, she is a footnote to a footnote of Lord of the Rings, which is a real ass pull of a character to try and make your main character. And
Yeah,
it kind of explains why she has zero writing in this movie.
I'm trying to check the appendices real quick, but it's been a hot minute since I've been in here.
So, I mean, that's another thing is like for a main character, you had a really good one in Helm Hammerhand, but they chose not to go with that because Helm Hammerhand, even in his small little section in the appendices, still has like a potential arc. Like you get the overview of the information, but you can
Well,
see like,
Helm's the main character until Freyaloft takes over.
yeah,
That's
no,
literally it.
my point is like you can see how the events would actually shape him throughout that like series of events. Like he like is forced out of his capital into the Hornburg, and he is like he loses his sons during their raids and sorties and stuff. And eventually that just like leaves him broken and vengeful and all that. You can see that just out of like the writing innately, but with Hera, you don't see how these events play out quite as well. Like you can make the argument like, okay, well she's losing family members and stuff too. Okay, but again, that's not like the consequences of her actions or the consequences of war or anything. Most of the time, like she's pretty uninvolved in all of this. I wouldn't expect it to affect her as much as it would affect a father who was relying on his sons to be able to take over his kingdom when he dies. There's a legit arc there. There's legit tragedy there. With Hera, you're disconnected from that somewhat because yes, they are family, but it's not as impactful because, well, the relationship is different.
Well, the actual like bits and pieces, so to speak, you're not getting what you'd expect out of the entire deal because we're having to make up all this extra stuff. So if you have to make up all this extra stuff and you make it less Tolkienian, it's going to pull people out of the entirety of the movie or show or whatever you're doing, because the entire purpose is to be like, you could have this great story about the Rohirrim and the Rohirrim. Like Rohan is personally is my favorite of the nations, and it's just what's up, Orlando. Um, but it's just like Rohan's great. It has a fantastic history. You could have had. I probably would not have picked Miranda Otto. I would have picked, obviously, since we don't have Bernard Hill anymore. Rip. I would have picked Carl Urban to come in and reprise his role as Eomer, as the king, to begin the movie with the history of the Rohirrim and be like, here's King Eorl, the first king of Rohan, the Aerlengas and the battles they fought, and like when the orcs from the north came down and attacked and King Walda was slain and all that kind of stuff. Like, you could tell these interesting things and then like, and now we're here. Helm.
Yeah.
And then you were like, okay, we just put 20, 30 minutes into this movie and we just started. And we just like, okay, well, that's time, but it also helps people catch up to where we are in this time. Because what's the point in being like, well, it happened 300 years before the War of the Ring. It's like,
But you
but
won't hear any tales of this sung in the songs.
for good reason, because they don't exist. It's not they don't exist because they were forgotten. It's they don't exist because they never were there to remember to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, did you know that Helm had a stable boy? Did you not ever hear the great tales of Helm's stable boy? It's like, no. It's like, you know why? I'm like, why? It's like, not because of Missandei, but because they didn't exist. It's like,
He was a stable boy. What
he
did
was
you
a stable
expect?
boy. Like imagine the Rohan Sam, whatever his name was, I already forgot. Like, if you made the entire story about him, it wouldn't make sense. Now, if you told the story from his perspective, because he's on the ground or something, then maybe that would make sense. Now, I wouldn't say he would make the most sense, because it wouldn't make sense because, well, quite frankly, he's not fighting in no armies, and he's not going to be doing anything of great valor because he's not exactly built for war when he's
I don't know.
pretty
Maybe
much
if
a
they
king.
roll him down the stairs, he might knock a couple of the wild men over.
Well, then he'd be a Rolando. Hey. Sorry. But Rolando needs nuts. But
Stop. Let's finish the thought, okay?
but no, like if you had like it obviously the actual story, Helm loses both of his sons, so you have Freyalof. It would make more sense about Freyalof perspective, or at least news that he heard. Like if it's Freyalof, because in the first half of the War of the Rohirrim, Freyalof's there with them, and then when he's not with them, he could say, I was told that this happened, this happened, this happened, and he would like tell you the way he was told by people who were there, whether it be officers, whether it be just soldiers or whatever. And like they're building they have these grand halls. The grand halls are there for storytelling. Storytelling is like part and parcel with the Rohirrim. Well, any culture really, but like imagine if you're talking to like Norsemen who have Vikings, and they have Vikings that have great tales, because Vikings just literally a job. It's just a raider. That's all it is. But they also do exploring and stuff. So if you're like Eric the Red, well, they're gonna get everybody sat down. One person's gonna step up and he's gonna like, let me tell you a grand story of Eric the Red, and you're gonna be like, oh, this is great, because that's what they're supposed to do. Is they're supposed to retell the stories of the greats, and that's what keeps people going on it. And it just, we're not getting that. We're getting Miranda Otto, who's a shield maiden, even though she's technically not a shield maiden. I mean, she is a shield maiden of Rohan, but she's not an active, like, here's the shield maiden brigade, and she's like literally the commander of it or something. Like that's not what it is, because there is no shield maiden brigade. It's just you're a woman who is the last line of defense against whatever's attacking.
Mm-hmm.
But when she goes on the offense to Pelennor, the Pelennor Fields, she's not technically a shield maiden, because she's going on the offense. Two, she's not supposed to be there anyway, because she's technically defying her king's orders directly. Let's not talk about that. But even then, it's still a cool scene to see her take on the Witch King, even though I still like the Witch King. Witch King's one of my favorite characters. What can I do? But in that sense, it's like, hey, you could have had Carl Urban tell the story. You could have had Freyalof tell the story. You could have had tons of characters tell the story. Just don't pull the whole King Arthur movie where Lancelot tells the entire story from the beginning of the film to the end of the film, but he's dead like the first half. Like it's like you literally aren't even there to tell the story. You're dead. Like, did you not think about this, guys, when you wrote the screenplay? Like, let me tell you the grand story of King Arthur. I, Sir Lancelot, and then it goes on, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, he dies, and then it keeps going, and he's still narrating, and like, but you're dead. How are you narrating?
Are you watching from heaven or something? Like, what's going on here?
I don't know, but yeah, like the point is that you could have had the story from somebody where it made sense, and you could build off of that and still build a decently long film. You could pick a 2-hour, 3-hour. I don't think you could do a 2-parter or a trilogy or anything, because there's just not enough information there. But you could add it into like a series where like the War of the Rohirrim, kind of like where they have like Beren and Luthien, they've got the Fall of Gondolin, they got all these little stories, Children of Hurin. You could do like a series of them, and this be the War of the Rohirrim, and then you do the ones where Gondor and Rohan subdue Harad, and they go over like Eomer and Aragorn go take out, well, not take out, they subdue I think both Harad, Far Harad, and Rune, and it was basically store peace. It's like, it's literally that simple. You could make other things, but you could also just tell the tales that we have. I don't know if I'm kind of confused by what I've heard, because the Silmarillion rights apparently were not for sale, and then they were for sale in certain aspects, and you couldn't get the rights to Gandalf, but now Rings of Power has the rights to Gandalf, but they had to buy them from Warner Bros., but Warner Bros. Didn't have the rights to the Silmarillion, so I'm not really sure what's going on in that regard, because I can't keep up with that stuff. So if somebody knows, let me know. But if they have the rights to Silmarillion, you have tons of stories to tell, like tons of them. And
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
And all you would need, like seeing a movie about a bunch of battle hardened dwarves taking out orcs and stuff, would just be fun. You can make it in the Tolkien Legendarium where it's not wild, it's not fanciful in terms of like not being a Tolkien thing, but doing it anyway. But you could make it be like, this could be great. All we have to do is hold to the Tolkien formula, use the words that Tolkien would have used for that people group, have them behave the way they're supposed to behave, have there be conflict, have there be drama, whatever it is that would fit the situation, and then just build with it. Battles take some time when there's multiples and there's buildups. The actual battles, when they hit, depending on the population of the armies, don't actually take that long. Like most battles in like medieval Europe would take like 15 minutes.
I was gonna
Because
say, like,
they just button.
like a long battle would be a half an hour.
Well, that's if they're big armies.
Yes.
If they're not big armies, they're much shorter, like 15 minutes.
People aren't fighting all day. Like,
it's hard to swing a sword like that for more than 5 minutes.
But how long does morale hold out in those? That's the biggest thing when determining these battles, because
that depends on how many shrooms you're on. The Vikings can go for a while.
How many shrooms are you on? Yes.
He's like, shrooms? But yeah, like there's so much you could do, and they just ignored it because they had an agenda. They wanted to do something because they felt a kinship with a non-named character. I'm like, you have kinship with the person who doesn't exist, named outside of like literally just daughter. That's your kinship.
Background character D/2.
I mean, it's like, I know who Philippa Boyens is. Philippa Boyens isn't a background character. She's a character that I know her name. I don't even know the daughter of Helm Hammerhand's name. How do you feel kinship?
How do you feel kinship with someone who was so unimportant to a story? They were literally mentioned in as abstract a form as they could.
Basically. I can't spell today.
Like, it's only mildly more specific than a woman, okay?
And that
was at least it narrows down
a woman.
To which woman, or at least, like generally what kind of woman. So yeah, there is plenty wrong with this movie.
There was way too much wrong with the movie, let's be honest.
Yeah. Just to like focus specifically on Hera herself and her writing. So let's ignore like a lot of like the lore issues and stuff, and just talk specifically like what she does in the movie and treat it like it's in a vacuum. She still sucks. She still fucking sucks as a character. Like, you can ignore all like the lore problems and stuff, and the fact that she never actually existed in lore. And she's still a flat character with like zero character arc, by the way. No struggles, no fun, no character building, nothing.
I mean, to be fair, they didn't make her like the ultimate girl boss. Like she wasn't just naturally good at everything. She got a lot of luck Like plot armor helped her a lot, but like when she was fighting on the noble in the stable, she was losing hard. So she wasn't. It
Yeah.
wasn't like she was immediately the bestest of the bestest ever-ish.
Mhm.
Like she actually had to struggle, and her ideas, albeit they're terrible ideas, they still happen to work out because that's how the story is supposed to go. Because they
Yeah.
have to make it work that way.
Well, yeah, but my
By the
point
way,
is
did you enjoy my intro to my last video, or when you watched it?
um the Razor Fist clip.
That, well, not that, but like the intro part.
Don't specifically remember it. All I remember is like I turned it on while I was working on something. All of a sudden I heard, "Fuck you, I was right. Fuck you, I was right. Fuck you, I was right."
Well, yes, I think it was before that point. It was the intro where like the chair was empty and I was in the background. Remember
Oh,
that?
that, yeah, with the hammer. Which that's another thing I want to bring up
It's right
later
up
is
there.
the hammer.
Oop,
But yeah, like
up there. Yeah,
Hera as a character
and the
is
mug's
one of
over
the
here.
most uncompelling like main characters that you can find in like any Tolkien story. And that is saying something because at least like Galadriel inspires like straight up, or I should say Galadriel in Rings of Power inspires straight up hatred for the character because she's just absolutely insufferable. Because
She's incompetent and insufferable.
but because Hera is so like she doesn't have that. She is not like blunt in your face with the girl power message, which I can appreciate. She just kind of comes off as like there's no attachment to the character whatsoever. Um
Well, that's because I don't know if you noticed the voice acting was just kind of like about as bland as it gets.
Yeah, I feel like there were very few moments in that whole thing where like the voice acting really was compelling, and most of the times where I actually thought, okay, maybe this is some good voice acting. It was generally guess who Helm Hammerhand.
It sounds like a seasoned voice actor. But even Freyolov had some good voice acting, and the brothers weren't so bad. The younger brother, which is the middle brother,
Mhm.
or the middle child, uh, when they did the singing, it sounded like it was a girl's voice, and then they changed like the voice actor or something.
I at that point I actually kind of was tuned out because I was trying to message the Grey Pilgrim to ask him, hey, weren't the Eagles supposed to be like Maiar or something? Like, do they reproduce? Is that how this works?
Um, I have to look it up again, but
His answer was effectively Tolkien originally was considering the idea, but eventually just made them like a like intelligent species of eagle
they're
that lives
I
in the
know that
world.
they're a special type of eagle. They're not like the only eagles, but they are the great eagles.
Yeah,
But
that was effectively
I believe that they would have to be procreative just for the fact that Gwahir is not the original Lord of the Eagles.
yeah. No, that's effectively what he said is yeah, they're pretty much just like they're the gray eagles are like a species. They're not like um
They're servants of a Valar, yes,
yes.
Manwë, but that's about it. But
So
one of the things I liked about my intro was that like I was just totally poking fun, sarcastic fun at the whole like I can use Grey Eagles as like a delivery service. Because it's like that's how I got my
why don't they
hammer and my
take the
mug.
eagles to Mordor?
That's such a dumb argument.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but you mentioned the hammer, and the one thing I really want to talk about is I don't
How
think
hammered
anyone.
you were when you saw this?
I wish I was hammered, but I had to drive
It
like
might have been
30.
more interesting.
I had to drive 30 minutes to a theater to see it. So
I had to drive 47 minutes
yeah, you got me beat. Anyway, so
every
when
day.
Helm gets locked out of the fortress, right? Because all the winter stuff and the
No,
gates
no,
are
no, no, no,
frozen.
no. When he sealed himself outside the fortress,
Yeah.
there is a
Okay.
difference.
So in that scene, he's punching everyone, right? Like he's not using a weapon. But
Yep.
he dies with his hammer in his hand.
I thought it was
Yeah,
his fist in the air.
when they go to him frozen outside the gate, he is standing with his hammer raised above his head.
I just remember a fist, but
No, he
maybe I
had the
missed that.
hammer.
I'll have to see the clip again, but I could have
I am
sworn he
like
didn't use a fist.
I am a well
I am
I am very, very,
110%
very,
not
very
sure.
certain. I am very, very, very certain that he has the hammer. I'm just like, what? So he had the hammer the whole time. Why did he decide to get into a slug out with the troll? Why not use the hammer? It's a force multiplier.
Well,
You probably
because
could have killed the
but if he killed the
troll
troll,
without the help of your daughter. Oh, that's why.
but if he killed the troll, she wouldn't have been able to kill him.
No, I think the reason
But it's
that the
also the
hammer.
funny thing is that we don't get to see any of the actual fighting of Helm Hammerhand, which is a shame because if they did show that, it would have made everybody impressed with Helm more than Hera.
Mhm.
But that's what we all came for. We all showed up for that particular scene.
Gee, it's
So
almost like when you tell the story of a fortress named Helm's Deep, you want to hear about the guy who it's named for.
it was probably a very deep tale.
Deeper than whatever we got. And
There was
again,
no depth in that one. So.
like if we're going to talk about some of these like logical questions with the movie, there is one other thing that I thought was like particularly weird to me. So I would say, like, when it comes to Tolkien's world, there's no supernatural way to enhance your strength, right? Like, you're born a normal person, you can do bodybuilding and shit and get stronger and all that, right? But you don't have any like chakra or ki or whatever to magically boost your strength. I do have that much correct, right? As a normie, like a normal man is going to be a normal man, right?
Yeah. So
So
I before we get like too crazy into this, did you have anything you wanted to like chat on? Because I was hoping to just read the bit in the appendices. It's like a page and a half or so.
no, this
If
was
that's
kind
cool
of
with you.
one of the things, like we can get into the appendices and then go through more of these critiques and stuff to sort of like
I meant
compare what
before we get into any of the other cultural related stuff or any of the actual like in-depth details, just so people are aware of like what actually is
yeah.
supposed to be in the story. If that
Sure,
was cool
sure,
with you.
yeah. Actually, before starting the stream, I had actually intended to say let's read that first, but I
I
think
have
we
it,
kind of
so
just we kind of just
I've got it right here
meandered.
ready for you.
All right, let's go.
All right. Of the kings of the mark between Eorl and Theoden, most is said of Helm Hammerhand. He was a grim man of great strength. There was at that time a man named Freka, who claimed descent from King Freowyn, though he had, men said, much Dunlinish blood, and he was dark-haired. He grew rich and powerful, having wide lands on either side of the Adorn. Near its source he made himself a stronghold and paid little heed to the king. Helm mistrusted him, but called him to his councils, and he came when it pleased him. To one of these councils, Freka rode with many men, and he asked the hand of Helm's daughter for his son Wolf. That's the only time you'll ever hear her brought up. But Helm said, "You have grown big since you were last here, but it is mostly fat, I guess." And men laughed at that, for Freka was wide in the belt. Then Freka fell in a rage and reviled the king, and said this at the last: "Old kings that refuse a proffered staff may fall on their knees." Helm answered, "Come, the marriage of your son is a trifle. Let Helm and Freka deal with it later. Meanwhile, the king and his council have matters of moment to consider." When the council was over, Helm stood up and laid his great hand on Freka's shoulder, saying, "The king does not permit brawls in his house, but men are freer outside." And he forced Freka to walk before him out from Edoras into the field. Remember, out of Edoras. And in the show or the movie, they're inside the gates. Let me do it here. To Freka's men that came up, he said, "Be off. We need no hearers. We are going to speak of a private matter alone. Go and talk to my men." And they looked and saw that the king's men and his friends far outnumbered them, and they drew back. "Now, Dunlending," said the king, "you have only Helm to deal with, alone and unarmed. But you have said much already, and it is my turn to speak. Freka, your folly has grown with your belly. You talk of a staff. If Helm dislikes a crooked staff that is thrust on him, he breaks it. So." With that, he smote Freka with such a blow that his fist that he fell back stunned and died soon after. So he technically didn't die in one hit. Like he did die from one hit, but he didn't like die immediately. He suffered a blow, probably brain trauma, and then bled out and died. Helm then proclaimed Freka's son and near kin the king's enemies, and they fled. For at once Helm sent many men riding to the west marches. 4 years later, in 2758, great troubles came to Rohan, and no help could be sent from Gondor. For 3 fleets of the Corsairs attacked it, and there was war on all its coasts. At the same time, Rohan was again invaded from the east, and the Dunlendings, seeing their chance, came over the Isen and down from Isengard. It was soon known that Wulf was their leader. They were in great force, for they were joined by enemies of Gondor that landed in the mouths of Lefnui and Isen. The Rohirrim were defeated and their land was overrun, and those who were not slain or enslaved fled to the dales to the mountains. Helm was driven back with great loss from the crossings of the Isen and took refuge in the Hornburg and the ravine behind, which was after known as Helm's Deep. There he was besieged. Wulf took Edoras and sat in the I always struggle with this word. The Meduzeld. Sheesh, it's hard to say. And called himself king. There, Haleth, Helm's son, fell, last of all, defending the doors. Soon afterwards, the long winter began, and Rohan lay under snow for nearly 5 months, November to March 2758 to 2759. Both the Rohirrim and their foes suffered grievously in the cold and in the dearth that lasted longer. In Helm's Deep, there was a great hunger after Yule, and being in despair against the king's counsel, Hama, his younger son, led men out on a sortie and foray, but they were lost in the snow. Helm grew fierce and gaunt for famine and grief, and the dread of him alone was worth many men in the defense of the burg. He would go out by himself, clad in white, and stalk like a snow troll into the camps of his enemies, and slay many men with his hands. It was believed that if he bore no weapon could bite on him. The Dunlendings said that if he could find no food, he ate men. That tale lasted long in Dunland. Helm had a great horn, and soon it was marked that before he sallied forth, he would blow a blast upon it that echoed in the deep, and then so great a fear fell on his enemies that instead of gathering to take him or kill him, they fled away down the combe. One night men heard the horn blowing, but Helm did not return. In the morning there came a sun gleam, the first for long days, and they saw a white figure standing still on the dike, alone, for none of the Dunlendings dared come near. There stood Helm, dead as a stone, but his knees were unbent. Yet men said that the horn was still heard at times in the deep, and the wraith of Helm would walk among the foes of Rohan and kill men with fear. It's a pretty cool story. Mm-hmm. Soon after the winter broke, then Freolof, son of Hild, Helm's sister, came down out of Dunharrow, to which many had fled, and with a small company of desperate men he surprised Wulf and the Meduzeld and slew him and regained Edoras. There were great floods after the snows, and the Vale of Entwash became a vast fen. The eastern invaders perished or withdrew, and there came help at last from Gondor by the roads both east and west of the mountains. Before the year 2079 was ended, the Dunlendings were driven out even from Isengard, and then Freolaf became king. Helm was brought from the Hornburg and laid in the 9th mound, ever after the white Cymbelmin grew there most thickly, so that the mound seemed to snow-clad. When Freolaf died, a new line of mounds was begun. The Rohirrim were grievously reduced by war and dearth and loss of cattle and horses, and it was well that no great danger threatened them again for many years, for it was not until the time of King Fulkwin that they recovered their former strength. It was at the crowning of Freolof that Saruman appeared, bringing gifts and speaking great praise of the valor of wrong story, of the Rohirrim. All thought him a welcome guest. Soon after, he took up his abode in Isengard. For this, Beren, a steward of Gondor, gave him leave, for Gondor still claimed Isengard as a fortress of its realm, and not a part of Rohan. Beren also gave into Saruman's keeping the keys of Orthanc. That tower no enemy had been able to harm or to enter. In this way, Saruman began to behave as a lord of men, for at first he held Isengard as lieutenant of the steward and warden of the tower. But Freolof was as glad as Beren to have this so, and to know that Isengard was in the hands of a strong friend. A friend he long seemed, and maybe in the beginning he was in truth. Though afterwards there was little doubt in men's mind that Saruman went to Isengard and hoped to find the stones still there, and with the purpose of rebuilding up a power of his own. Certainly after the last White Council in 2953, his designs towards Rohan, though he hid them, were evil. He then took Isengard for his own and began to make it a place of guarded strength and fear, as though no rival, or as though to rival the Barad-dûr. His friends and servants he drew then from all who hated Gondor and Rohan, whether men or creatures more evil. And that's it. And then Theoden's story comes into play. But
Gee,
it's just like there's so much good content there.
like
And we were
that in and of
deprived of all of
itself
it.
is a far more compelling story than what we got.
Yeah. And you could have easily filled that out. Easily. And there would have been, you could have had the sorties, you could have had any type of charges. Freyolof having, and the thing is like Freyolof had a lot of guys in the movie, but having less of them and just falling upon the Dunlendings at the Hornburg, because it wasn't Helm's Deep at the time, and falling upon them and causing them to flee would have been great. But it's like they left on their own. So when he hits them, it's at Edoras.
Yeah,
And Edoras
it mentions that they catch Wolf off guard and kill him basically in the palace.
in the halls, yes, of the Rohirrim. So it's like you had so many chances to do this, but they wanted so many eyes on Helm's Deep because they wanted to try to recreate that scene in the Two Towers. That's why we were there for so long. Like, granted, we could have easily handled this, but it's like a 5-month period in between the scenes, and there was probably still time in between that. They didn't show any time jumps. It's not like we got an update every 5 minutes, like, running low on supplies, still running low on supplies. Guess we're still running low on supplies. Like, we didn't get there's no time jump. We have no concept of time except for how long it takes them to build their siege tower. That was really dumb. But I mean, you could have had Miranda Otto.
I'm so glad I'm not the only person who looked at that and was like, there's no way that thing would have survived that impact.
Well, I mean, I saw it more as like a symbol of Wolf's manhood. And thus, when it broke or set on fire, scorned as it might be, it made sense. But
so no, I work with that like construction and stuff. So watching them build that, I'm like, the sheer weight of that thing would cause it to break the moment it hit that wall.
But Rolando makes an interesting point, is that it is pretty cool to fight a troll with your bare fist. But here's the thing. In the actual story of Helm Hammerhand, he didn't use a weapon. It was literally just his fists. So having a hammer would be kind of pointless.
Yeah. The funniest thing though is like you can tell like how these people think. Like by the fact that they gave him the fact that they gave him a hammer as his weapon.
I mean, him having a hammer, it's not like too crazy to believe. I mean,
no, but it's just one of those things. Like
it took his name a little too seriously.
That's my point. Is like, oh well, he's called Hammerhand, so he should die with a hammer in his hand.
Yeah, but Hammerhand literally means just heavy fists. That's literally all that means. Which explains the whole One Punch Man Freka face. So, I mean, they could have done, I mean, it's possible to do worse easily. Like, they could have made it much worse. Like, have a laser robot show up or something stupid like that. But, like, and that's, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this countless times. Like, it's just fantasy. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, well, if it doesn't matter, then we can do the most obtuse, crazy, ridiculous things under the sun, because why not?
There legitimately are things that I would consider like inane to critique, but like world building is important to a fantasy series because establishing how it works is what gets people interested in your world. That's one of the big things about fantasy in general is you need to be very particular about how intricate your world is and how well it's constructed, because that's really what's going to convince people to like be interested in it. It's one of the things, like I was mentioning before we started reading that, like Lord of the Rings is not one that has an abundance of supernatural powers available to everyone. It isn't like a
It's not My
Naruto.
Hero Academia.
No, that's what I was gonna say. It's not a Naruto. It's not a My Hero Academia. You don't just like randomly have like a superpower or whatever. So
Well,
you have to
Hera's
operate.
superpower, she's a woman.
I was gonna say you have to operate within some realm of realism when it comes to combat, because the Lord of the Rings, as much as it does implement like fantasy stuff for battles, they're still very realistic in their structure and their uh like the battles are still very realistic in their structure and the way they play out. So when we get to a scene where like where Wolf is able to single-handedly pick up Hera and lift her over his head and pitch her across their fighting arena, okay, so now we know that Wolf is incredibly strong and he should be very easily overpowering Hera in this fight. But no, she then is able to match the guy blow for blow in the following exchanges.
I mean, there are instances where women can beat men in swordsmanship and whatnot, and Chad did a little spiel on that. That part itself doesn't bother me nearly as much as just her existence. But yeah, Alethea, I know that it is pronounced that way. It's just really annoying to say it, and it also just pisses me off saying it
Yeah,
because it should never
yeah.
be there. It shouldn't be there to begin with.
To answer the first question, no, I'm not a fan of the movie. I don't
No.
think it was like the worst thing I've ever watched, but I don't think it was exceptional by any means. It was just kind of there
The
to me.
actual drawing style was Western, and it shows. The animation was Eastern, and it shows.
Mhm.
But if they had done both in the East and then just did like English voice acting over it, it would have been much, much better.
Yeah, but
Because like a Vinland Saga level of it would be so much better.
yeah. So to get back to like the point I was making with like Wolf and Hera and stuff, normally that stuff doesn't really bother me. Like I watch tons of anime and talking about stuff like that. Like
But it's just funny because it's like you need to roll the R, and I'm like, maybe that's why they picked the name, because Rings of Power was doing the R's and everything. And it's just like that's why we picked Hera, is because like Hera.
yeah. But like my point in all of that was, well, Tolkien built his world a specific way, and people like that world.
Well, apparently not, because they changed it.
So
Let's
like I would expect them to remain somewhat faithful to it and consider those things. But in a normal anime, wouldn't care because you can justify it with like random anime bullshit. Go.
well, that's the
Like
thing is that
Sakura breaking rocks with her fist. Okay, cool.
well, the
Like
thing
I
is
don't mind that.
that doesn't break any like lore or world building, because it's established in Naruto that Sakura can break rocks because she's really strong. Like no one's gonna be like, I can't believe a woman just broke a stone with her strength. It's like, yeah, she's strong. Nobody cares. Move on. Like
Mhm.
it's just the world building. It's fine in the story. It's fine in the setting. The setting has to be explained in a particular way for it to make sense. But
Yeah.
like for Alethea, like this in this particular sense, for those of you who play Magic the Gathering, hi. Um, but when they had the Middle Earth set come out, the moment I heard they had one, I was like, I'm gonna buy a full play set of every card in that set. No matter what happens, I'm gonna get a full. I was gonna blow money out of the wazoo for it because I was stoked. And then they did the art reveals, and I just went, because
Yeah.
the art reveals alone told me they did not respect Tolkien and they
Mhm.
didn't care. And then the articles for the artists came out and said, we did this explicitly and specifically to piss people off.
Mhm.
Like in Claymore, what? Claymore's a great anime.
With women having power and all that.
Oh yeah,
Like
but
in Claymore, like only the women are able to control the monster powers that they're infused with.
mhm.
When it's given to men, they quickly run out of control. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, like the stuff like that, or even a newer manga like Ichi the Witch, where only women are capable of becoming magic users up until Ichi manages to get his hands on some special
The good
abilities.
stuff. But no, like Wheel of Time is the same way, because Wheel of Time, after the breaking of the world, men went insane, broke the world, and then they were hunted down by the women, and then basically eradicated to the point where anytime a man is found who could channel, they have to gentle him, and gentling means they cut him off from his magical power. But when you are cut off from your magical power, you lose the will to live. Because when you have the power, insane or not, everything's more vibrant. Life is like way better. And touching the source is amazing.
Mhm.
So if you're going about, you have like this the White Tower, and it's all women sorceress type characters, and they're all like doing their shindig, and they're the only ones who are allowed to do anything. And then the main character comes along and is like, "Yeah, I can channel. I'm a dude." It's like, what? Well then, and then all of a sudden it's a major plot point. So if you just take that out of the story, it doesn't make sense anymore. But
Mhm.
no, let's just. I feel this character that nobody knows the name of and is not actually there. It's just kind of like, let's make them the main person. Oh wait, they did that with Wheel of Time with
Yeah.
Moraine. Yeah.
To make like one final point on this, like
There's more
I
characters
don't
to
even
like,
think I don't
Alethea.
yeah, I don't even think like in Tolkien you can never have a woman defeating a man. I mean, uh fucking Fields of Pelennor, okay? Can we talk about the Witch King and all
Pelennor
that?
Fields, you pleb.
Okay. Sure, yes. Okay, fine. I stand corrected. The Pelennor Fields, the
You
Witch
sit
King.
corrected. Jeez.
Like that it's not like it can't happen in Tolkien, okay? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you need to think about these things and do them smartly. You need to be intelligent about your writing. If
That
you're
would
going to make
involve them being intelligent to begin
yeah,
with.
if you're going to make a story like you can still have Hera. Hera.
Harrah!
You can still have her
Gotta roll
defeat
the
Wolf.
R's.
But if you're going to show Wolf as capable of picking up someone and throwing them over his head, you need to make it a much more tactical battle rather than just matching blow for blow. You should show Hera being more on like the intelligent, crafty
I
side.
did like her where she gets Wolf's sword stuck in her shield and twisted it and threw it away. That
Mhm,
was pretty cool.
mhm.
But that's because it's an actual tactic that's used in actual swordfare. But to answer Alethea, I don't know which character you were referring to because a lot of people died in book 5. So it doesn't narrow it down. But
Do you realize how little that narrows it down?
well, I mean he's got over 2,000 named characters in 15 books. Like it's I think it's the world record for the most named characters in a series. But Matt is best boy and Nynaeve is best girl. It's
Hmm.
just the way it is. Like I don't know who you think you lost, but somebody else is a lot better still there.
Yeah.
So
So the one thing I will say that this movie actually like I am surprised by is the fact that, like we mentioned, it is not the bluntest with the message part of it, I guess. Like
so you're saying
most of
it's a pretty terrible hammer stroke.
it is like pretty palatable. Like, okay, given normal circumstances, like this wouldn't be all that bad. Like you
If
just
it was if it was a normal anime, just a random fantasy anime, it wouldn't have been that bad. I mean, it would have been still bad because like the plot points and everything was just it's way too overbearing.
it would have been
And
frustrating to watch Wolf as a
I
villain ignore all the good counsel he got. Yeah.
well, not just like the East would never be that stupid, and they would never have made an anime that poorly.
Hmm.
Like, but even if it was, I'd be way more forgiving of it because it's not pissing all over a great franchise. A
Yes.
great the great professor's entire legendarium would not his reputation would not be in shambles because of it. And
The
it's the same issue with like people like you just don't like black elves because you hate black people. It's like no, they belong in D&D, not in Tolkien's legendarium because that's not how they're described. But I'm perfectly fine with them being in something else because in something else that setting allows them to be there and that makes them there. That's
Mhm.
fine.
like
But don't
it,
do it in a series that it's not intended to be for.
or like to go back to the Magic the Gathering, nobody really cares about like any of that stuff until you start taking existing IPs and changing those elements.
Yeah, because it's like nobody cares that you have a black character in anything in MTG. They care when you take a non-black character and make them a black character. Much
Mhm.
like let's say there's a I don't know, Aragon, the Dragon series by Christopher Paolini. Um, let's say all dragons. That's not how the story is, but let's say all dragons were yellow dragons, like a goldish yellow, burnished yellow type thing. And then somebody's like, let's adapt this. And then they make all these dragons like blue, brown, purple, pink. And you're just like, don't do that. You just hate these guys because they look different. They're minorities. And it's like, no, it's because they're not what was described. That's why we don't like it. Because you're basically dissing the author and saying, I know better than the guy who made this series. And I'm incapable of making my own series, but I'm better than him. It just it doesn't add up in any shape or form.
Let's say you have like a race in a fantasy series that has horns and like facial patterns and stuff, and then it gets
obviously black people. Jeez, come on.
but let's say it gets an adaptation and both of those features are suddenly removed. You have fundamentally fucked with something that was supposed to be a part of those characters, right?
Well, if you have a race of elves and then you take away their pointy ears, their immortal life, and all that type of stuff, they're no longer slender. Now they're short and fat, and you basically turn them into hobbits. You kind of screw with the lore. Like that's kind of how that works. So like I don't find anybody who argues that to be legitimate or to have even a half decent argument, because they're being disingenuous. And I was reading some more comments today about a video I want to do probably tomorrow, because I have to do it before I go out of town to the in-laws. But have you heard about the Gooners?
We talking Goonergate?
Yeah. We're like, everyone's a Gooner because they like sexy women. And you're like, so you admit you like ugly women.
I'm gonna give a brief shout out here to like Lethal Lightning and the guys who do gronking on dogs.
He's gonna be brutal on that. Oh my gosh.
No, they already covered it last week. They did the whole thing where like Smash JT did the breakdown of like why Goonergate matters. And I'm just like, everyone involved in this is fucking retarded, just like the Art Wars. And I'm sitting there like, why is there so much absolute retardation on the internet right now? It's always there, but for some reason it reared its head in my feed this week or last week.
It's because we forced it on you. We stuck it with your password.
I had to be the only person to objectively cover all the fucking Don the Don fan art shit. Like, what the hell is wrong? I'm not a journalist. Why do I have to be the one doing this shit?
Because the journalists all suck. But no, it's like, I can see why someone like you would like not care. Like, it's not that big of a deal. People are just doing whatever. But at the same time, it's where the pendulum has been swinging left really, really far for a really, really long time now. And then now that the pendulum's swinging the other direction, the left is still trying to hold on to what they have, and they're still pointing the finger. They're still shooting the isms and the phobes and all that stuff at people. They're doing all that type of stuff. But people are still not in the clear for, like, when we get to the point where no one's going to get fired because they disagree about a character's attractiveness or what they should look like according to source material, people will be in a better spot. We're not in that spot because businesses will still abuse their power and then still fire people and ruin lots of things that way.
My issue with it is I am like anti-censorship very much. Like, I feel like people are completely within their right to make, say, like Gooner stuff, like 2.5D seduction, stuff like that. I could go with like
Stellar Blade.
I wouldn't even consider it like Stellar Blade. Like, please put them on. Takamine-san is another one that's getting an anime adaptation here soon. Ecchi manga. I think people are perfectly within their right to make stuff like that, or stuff like Stellar Blade or Stellar Blade. Stellar
Bade me to blade.
Nair Automata. People are perfectly willing to, are perfectly within their right to make those things. Do I personally like to read them all the time? No. Sometimes I'll find one that I actually like the story.
I think the lady doth protest too much. That's you.
No, but my point is, like, I'm not going to sit here and talk about how this should never be a thing. I have made my comments about, like, what happened to modesty why do we have to go like fully extreme on everything? You have your right to, but why do we need to?
But
To be
here's the
considered
thing though,
beautiful.
is it's not even that bad because okay,
Well,
one of
one
the
more
things
thing before you go here,
okay,
yeah, or before I let you do
go.
this. My big point, my big point in it was I watched people like John Delarose and Melanie Mack completely shift their tune on all of this stuff the moment it looked like conservatives were actually winning the culture war.
Yeah.
Like the moment that happened, they became entirely pro censorship themselves, just
I
for the
mean,
things that they don't like.
if you ever listen to Melanie Mac talk about Laura Croft, she's totally gooning it.
Oh,
Like
well,
totally gooning.
she was
And then she's all
super
of a sudden
into
like,
like
well,
yeah, she was super into like Stellar Blade. Like, oh, this is the greatest thing. Look at this. And then all of a sudden, like, you're all gooners. This is pouring over the last or the first Descendant.
well, it was okay because we didn't have very much good quality stuff. And now that it's shifting towards that, now it's not okay because you're being too excessive into it. And it's like, but if somebody wants to consume that, that they're going to consume that whether you want them to or not. But what you should be promoting is wholesomeness, not anti gooner or whatever. Like if you want everything to be wholesome, then promote wholesomeness. Like that should be your argument. But my point was is that I was on things and people are talking about gooners because they want Siri to look attractive. Facial, just the face. They want it to look like Witcher 3 instead of Witcher 4. Because Witcher 4, she looks like a man's face. And Witcher 3, she looks like a female. And she's feminine. And she has a cuteness to her. But you're like, just the face, no body, nothing else about the body. Sorry about that. Nothing about the body. And they're like, you're just a gooner. You want to just fap off to this. And it's like, we don't want her to look hideous. Like, is it that? Is it too much to ask? Because I'm pretty sure that when The Witcher 4 comes out, the first mod is going to be to fix Siri. It's going to be the first mod. The second mod will be the nude one, but the first mod will be the face mod because nobody wants it. And whoever makes that mod is going to get banned off of Nexus because you're fixing women or some stupid crap because the guy's a retard. But point being is like the gooning isn't even about like the whole body and tight revealing dresses of whatever case. Like that you don't have to be in lingerie. You could be in wholesome, quote unquote, Christian denim jeans or whatever, dresses or whatever they got. And it's gooning because she's pretty.
Well, that just goes to show that the word gooner has been watered down from what it actually was originally.
Well, it just started popping up from what I know, and all of a sudden it's already being used to
It's
touch
been
things it doesn't
going
even.
around for about a year. And the original definition was basically edging until you reach like a translate state.
I
That's
heard
what gooning
Coomer, but I didn't
that,
know if
that is what gooning is supposed to be. It's basically just edging extremely for an extremely long time.
but like the arguments are just like you just want to you just want to blow your load. It's like I'm sure most people would agree. Yes, they would like to do that, but at the same time, that's you're building a straw man saying that this is what we want. That's not what we want. We just want an attractive character,
Mhm.
somebody that we can be like, I'm not going to be abhorrently repulsed by every time I see them. That is that too much to ask? Because otherwise you might as well just make every character hideous, which at this point the West has been doing nothing but that. And the East comes in making attractive characters. They like the first Descendant has good looking dudes that are muscular and like make you want to go to the gym and pump some weights. You're like, yeah, I got goals. And then they got really hot women, and you're like, they're attractive.
Yeah,
But
like
you're like, you're
I would
still
fucking
folks are
make
shitting.
Ajax's armor in a heartbeat. Like
Ajax has got some sick armor. But like that even like any of the characters, just like they all have a good vantage point. And when you get to their ultimates and stuff, it's even cooler. But like even the least attractive character in the first Descendant is still miles ahead of anything in the West currently. But we've taken something like that and saying, yeah, I want the character to be attractive, but I'm not going to be just staring at the butt the entire time. I still have to shoot things. I'm still going to farm. I'm still going to do that. I just want to do it being attractive. And the thing is girls want this too. It's not just a guy's thing. Or the girls just going to goon all day. Is that what the like? Is this the argument all of a sudden? Girls just goon to girls all day?
Melanie Mac, maybe.
Yeah, if it's Laura Croft or something. Like put Laura Croft in a Soul Calibur game and she'd goon all day for that. But and it's like I don't have a
She's
problem with her
Christian, and
liking
she's
it.
Christian until you put Laura Croft in the room with her.
Well, she has Laura Croft in the room with her. That's the funny
Oh,
part.
so she's not Christian.
Oh no! So if you watch her, look in the back. It's right behind her. It's a full. It's a life size. Well, almost life size. It's like a 90%
Anyway,
accurate. But
I think I derailed us this time
yes, you did
because
because
you were
I was
you were
trying to
going to
point
bring up
out
a
that
comment.
I was
You were going to
bringing
bring
up
up a
that the
comment.
comments are saying that we are doing this weird thing in the gooning area, and I'm sitting here like, but that's not what we're doing. So most of us just hate the misinformation aspect. You're labeling us something that we're not, and you're trying to throw arguments at me that I'm not making and saying that this is what we're all about. It's like, no, we want it to make sense. Like, why is Hera a redhead? There are no redheads in Rohan.
Well,
Exactly.
someone's dyslexic and read it as ginger, probably.
Well, Hera in Greek means
Oh, hold on.
red. I don't know. It's a stupid thing like that. I don't know.
I
Like,
know I'm going to hell for that joke, and I know that the content police are inbound.
Now give them hell.
He made a racist joke.
well, I don't know. Not really race.
Of
They're
course, I'm
soulless.
racist. I love NASCAR.
That does mean you're racist. You hate all of humankind because you've got, I don't even know what the term would be, but you basically get boners for engines. Yeah, we know.
Anyway, back to the War of the Rohirrim.
But yeah, like when you're making some sort of an argument towards like why is Hera not a good character, and she's not even like a bad character ultimately. She's just kind of like a meh character.
Yeah.
She's not like great and she's not terrible because everyone just sits there and affirms her the entire time. It's not even like she's sitting there going, I'm awesome, I'm awesome, I'm awesome. No. Everybody else is affirming her as awesome. Her dad does it, her brothers do it, Freyolf, her cousin does it. Everybody does it.
Wolf
Even
does
Wolf
it.
does it. Like, it's just everybody's telling her she's the most awesomest awesome person ever. And you think that logically speaking, if you're the most awesomest person ever to the bad guy's eye, like in his eyes, him trying to kidnap you means he's going to lose whatever plan he has. Because she's going to be awesome. She's going to break out. She's going to do all the things. She's going to spoil everything. Everything's going to go wrong. Like, why would you try to kidnap her then? Like, that doesn't even make plot sense.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like, why did he ultimately end up kidnapping her again? Like,
well, because he has her as a kidnapped hostage.
Yeah, but like he does the whole like you can still marry me, and she's like to prevent all this, and he like freaks the fuck out and then decides, you know what, fuck you.
Well, the reason he freaks out is because he was giving her a chance to like marry him and actually like be someone in his life and actually have her care for him and vice versa. But she immediately just disregards that and goes to like to I won't marry you because I'll love you. I won't marry because I care about you. I won't marry you for any of those reasons. I'll marry you explicitly just to save Rohan from all this trauma. And he's like, okay, well then there's no point now. So like I get his freak out because from his viewpoint as the villain, unstable as he is, that makes sense. Like that didn't go too far for me. But the idea of keeping her as it, and it looked like he was about to carve her up when the Shield Maiden bust in. But instead of stabbing her and then going after the Shield Maiden, she just goes after the Shield Maiden because of reasons. But
I mean, the whole reason the
think
Shield Maiden is there is because Hera's there. So just stab Hera. You're done. Like, okay, well, now what you gonna do? We have an entire army here.
well, she'd probably try
The
to
reason you
kill.
were supposed to be here
He'd probably
is
try to
gone.
kill Wolf and then get out. It's probably the case. But I actually like Freyaloff doing his little John Wick on the walls right there.
Mhm.
That was pretty cool. And again, if it was any other anime, I'd been like, oh man, that's freaking boss. But that couldn't save anything for me.
Yeah. Well, again, with like we're talking about that, like I thought you said you had a plan. Didn't say it was a good one. That is like the most fucking Tumblr shit. Like that would not be.
Did you
Tolkien.
realize they did that like 3 times in the entire movie?
Yes.
They just kept
I
using the line
hated that
over.
they like Hera
Oh.
repeats the line back. I'm like, oh, they're so proud of that line, and it is the most unfitting line in this entire movie. When it comes to like the themes and writing of Tolkien, it was so fucking bad. I hated it.
Well, I mean, if you watch the Nerd of the Rings interview with Philippa Boyens, you meet the writing staff.
Is it all Tumblr girls?
There's a guy in there. Pretty sure he's gay, but there's a guy in there.
So yes, all Tumblr girls.
Yes, basically. And then Philippa Boyens herself, which yes, Tumblr girls, basically what she is. It's the best way to describe her. But if you're looking at it from that perspective, they look just like what you expect. It's pretty depressing, honestly.
Yeah, it's like it's so aesthetically wrong that the moment they said it, I'm like, oh god. Like I don't try to be this nitpicky about things, but
see, I am nitpicky and I'm exhausted. Like
that line just triggered something in me. I'm like, that's the kind of thing I would expect out of trash isekai, not out of Tolkien.
That's because it wasn't in Tolkien.
That's my point.
Yeah, it's just like I wouldn't expect this in Tolkien. It's because it's not there. But I feel like in production quality, it's better than Rings of Power. It's more consistent in that regard.
Well, I don't. It's not like miserable to watch. Like,
I mean, that's pretty miserable. My dad punched me in the arm one time because I just kept laughing at certain instances. He's like, "Shut up!" And I was like, "No." But it's just like I'm more offended about this than I am Rings of Power because 1, I was expecting this to be better. 2, I wanted it to be better. 3, I know the behinds because I did some videos and stuff. I covered them, and I watched the interviews, it's like an hour and 45-minute interview with Nerd of the Rings or whatever it was, and I've got little snippets back and forth and whatnot. I did that stuff, and I was like, I'm losing any hope of salvation, rebirth, Wheel of Time fans. Just by any of this type of stuff. Like, it's just, I'm dying on the inside. And it's like, why are you always so negative? Why are you always going after this? Make things not negative, and then I can't be negative about them. But the problem is, everything's negative. So you're going to get negative stuff. What are you... Okay, when's the last time the news was positive? Like the mainstream news?
I don't know.
I'll wait. Like, it hasn't been like ever in the last 20, 30 years. It has
that's the thing is the negative stories sell better.
Yes. And it's what gets people to watch because they want to hear what else is going wrong in the world. So people are coming out saying, I want to know what's wrong with the world. Why are you always being so negative? And it's like, because there's nothing else to cover. If I could cover something else, I would. But the problem is every time there's something to turn and look, that's just worse stuff.
And there's an element to this that a lot of people will ignore. Like, if you're like really looking forward to something, is it more or less of an appreciation to look into how it's made, who's doing what, to see that the movie is actually going to be something you'll enjoy ahead of time? Or are you just supposed to sit there and seal clap for literally everything that even remotely resembles the property you like?
Well, from the perspective of a normie, if you don't seal clap, you're a bigot and you're a hater and you just want to be nitpicky about all the details because you just don't like what they're doing because you're a racist bigot, istophobe, whatever.
at one point, because I started getting more and more into like the entertainment stuff than my friends, they started talking about how like I just liked to hate on things. I'm like, no, because they genuinely suck. I don't care if you think that the Thor Love and Thunder humor was quote unquote on point. I thought it was cringe and wish it would go back to the original Thor movie.
Well, Marvel humor has infected everything,
Yes.
and it's not done us any favors because once you hear a Marvel joke, you've heard all of them.
Yeah.
They're not good. They're poorly written. It's that cheap comedic humor that doesn't have any actual like long-lasting humor thing. That's like, oh, dude, remember that one time? And everyone tells the comedian joke, and they're like, oh, that was so great. That no one does that from a Marvel film. We look at it, we laugh maybe in the theaters, and then afterwards we're like, man, why did I laugh at that? That was terrible. And then we just move on with our lives. And then when we see something that has it in it that's not Marvel, we're just like, why are you putting this in it? It'd be like, imagine a Civil War movie back like North-South Civil War, Abraham Lincoln era, right? 1800s. And imagine having Marvel humor in that.
I mean, if it were a
How
Tarantino film, I
off-putting
think that would be like that would be one thing, but that's a Tarantino film and they're just naturally absurd. If you're
Maybe.
doing
Well,
a
if it
historical
was
drama,
absurd,
if you're doing a historical drama, yeah.
it'd be way out of place.
Yes.
It would take you out of the immersion. You'd be like, what is happening? I want a refund.
Not
Because
like you can't have like some sense of humor or something, but you have to have it fit the actual era that it's in, right?
it's really, really getting bad because writers are just writing whatever they think will draw people in.
Yeah, no, my point in all of that was like, if you're a fan of something and you enjoy it and you start looking forward to it, you have every right to look at things surrounding what's going on with it and call them red flags. People don't want to acknowledge that. They just expect you to be like, oh, well, you're a fan. Well, you should consume. You know, the whole clip about don't ask questions, just consume next product.
And prepare for next product.
Yeah. Like, it's frustrating to me that I'm like expected to not be critical of things that
Well, it's
I
because being
watch.
critical is negative in society's eyes, even though being critical is not negative inherently.
I'm
There is
critical of the things I like the most.
that's the way I am. Like I'll criticize something if I think it's absolutely stupid, but if it's an area I don't necessarily care about, I'm just like, whatever. That's your area. You can have it. Like I'm not a big Harry Potter fan. I watched the movies. That was it. Like I beat all of freaking
Blabbering collector
the new
will
one.
come for your head here soon.
Bring it on. I've got the freaking Rohirrim on my side. You've got freaking little wizardy woppity poppity dudes on your side. What are you gonna do? Oh, so I've got actual elves.
Your main villain couldn't take over a high school.
Basically. John Wick versus Harry Potter. John Wick wins 10 out of 10 times. Just saying. But yeah, so like
if John Wick would shrug off an Avada Kedavra and then just stab Voldemort.
He'd be like, fall to the ground. He'd be like, ha ha. He turns around. I'm not done yet. I didn't hear no bell
with a pencil.
I didn't hear no bell.
Anyway,
yeah, like if it's something I don't like, you're like, yeah, Harry Potter, whatever. I probably am not going to consume, devour, repeat all of the Harry Potter stuff because it doesn't really interest me that much. Now, if they made this TV show, which is looking very sus right now, they make this TV show accurate to the books. Like if it was something where if I watched the series and I read the books and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the best thing ever, then I'd probably become a huge Harry Potter fan because I like details like that. If it's something where they start race swapping, which is what it looks like they're doing a lot, and they start taking characters away from their descriptions in the books, I don't care about J.K. Rowling's comments on what she thinks they should look like when she actually defined what they look like in the books, and there is evidence of that, then I'm not going to care. Be like, you can have it. It's not my farm. Hi, Ronnie.
I was about to say, hey, Ronnie.
Too slow.
But yeah, it's like it's one of the reasons why I try not to talk too terribly much about comics anymore. It's because it's one of those areas where
nobody reads them.
Well, Well, I'm not like a huge comic book fan. I have my
Yeah.
Batman stuff and all that, and I have indie stuff that I buy and I invest
I
in.
prefer
I talk
manga
about
over
those.
comics, but yeah.
But like it's not my field of expertise, so I'm not going to sit here and talk like I know things about it. Same generally with like Lord of the Rings lore and all of that. That's why it's nice to have people around who actually understand those sorts of things, because it's like
We need more, not less competent Lord of the Rings people.
yes, pretty much. That's why I try to leave it to people like you and Rolo.
Well, you know what's funny? When Rings
Literally
of
everyone
Power,
else I've ever
when
streamed
Rings
with.
of Power came out, and we're standing like we stand with Tolkien and his works, and not with Amazon. That's when the floodgates broke open, right? And all the normies came in, being critical, mind you, and not of the constructive kind, of the blatantly negative. And we're just be like, well, you're just haters, you're doing this. Like they're critiquing us for defending the source material because we care about it and we actually like the author and we have no beef to grind with him. But then we go out here and we're like, we don't want Amazon to piss with this. And that's what they're doing. And they're like, oh no, they're doing this. Like everybody, all these armchair world builders came out of nowhere, like crawled out of the holes in the ground like worms. And it's just like, what are you doing? That's not how world building works. You're literally arguing with the greatest fantasy world builder of all time about how to world build. Are you retarded? Because that's not what you're not going to win. But they're like, well, Tolkien never said this. And it's about that? Yeah, he did.
On that regard, I think Tite Kubo, the creator of Bleach, had a really great thing to say of go sit in the corner and only open your mouth to eat dust and rain.
Was it you who was in the that one X group call? I think it was you.
With
it?
High King Feanor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was making those really fire comments, but spicy. But well, that one guy who's trying to defend Rings of Power because that's a take. Not a popular one, but he's just like, well, no. If you know this, and I didn't think Feanor like pulled the big guns out. He kind of just was like, no, like he seemed pretty tame comparatively, but from what I understand, he's a pretty cool dude. But
yeah, I was gonna say my complaint about that was it seemed like Feanor didn't really bring his A game to that, because he seems like he kind of knows a lot of what he's talking about, but when he got into that debate, it's like it was something else entirely. Like it wasn't a good showing for him.
The guy who was hosting was like talking, but here's the thing: talking confidently does not equate to you actually knowing what you're talking about, and that's the problem we have in academia, scholarship, etc., whether it be history, science, theology, whatever the case might be. People love to talk confidently, but not know exactly what they're talking about. And when they do that, the rest of us are like, wait a minute. That's not what the sources say, or that's not what this says, or something. I mean, look at Metatron. Metatron does this all the time. He tears them apart because they talk confidently, but what they're saying has actual zero substance, and it doesn't actually hold to what truth might actually be and what it might entail. So when this other guy was hosting and he was talking to Feanor about it, I'm sitting here going like, no, definitely no, triple no. Just like, no. And occasionally the guy would say something accurate, but it's almost like the best way to lie is to put a grain of truth in there. So he would like say one thing that's true and then stuff it full of lies, and then say something that's true, stuff it full of lies, and I'm just sitting there like, no, that's not how it works, guys. It's just you have to put it all into perspective.
And then they opened it up for everyone, and it turned into a struggle session.
When the I'm gay or I'm trans or I don't give a frick what you are. You're wrong.
He has emboldened transphobia against us just for liking this show. What a fucking disingenuous bitch that person was. I'm just gonna say it.
I was gonna say prick, but yeah.
Well, it was a woman. It was a woman doing all that shit.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
I was playing the first Descendant at the time, listening to it.
You were too busy.
I was too busy taking my 101 jiggle physics class. Okay.
I was on 102 advanced, man. What's wrong with you? But no, like when they started doing that, I was like, first off, this is not Tolkien related. Second off, I know more than you because, and I'm not that I know more than you, like in terms of like Tolkien, but in terms of if you go to my channel, I have an entire playlist of videos that the Council of Light and I have done specifically on Tolkien and the Tolkien Society specifically about people saying things. And the one that we wanted to do, which was the Gondor and transition, basically Gondor being a trans allegory, like a whole little seminar thingy about it. Yeah, that was a thing. I think it was in.
I think that's probably the only thing that could top the stupidity charts. After I started listening to this one flat Earth podcast because I just had to hear how absolutely insane it was.
Dude, flat Earth people are wild.
My
Like
my
they are,
my
they're freaking wild.
the new coworker, he pointed me to the flat Earth files, and I'm sitting there listening to like the first 2 episodes. I'm like, holy shit, this guy is insane.
All right,
Like he's
so
legit
we
crazy.
have 10 videos right now, and we still have like 5 more to go. So there is the Invisible Other. There was, come on, Elizabeth King was the one who did that one. Nicholas Burns did another one. Christine Larson. There was actually one on here that I really liked, and it was by Joel Meringer. And out of all of these, he's the only one, and probably the only one for the entire thing, where the seminar he did was actually interesting. And I even put 10 out of 10 on the thumbnail, because he was talking about like artwork, like Lord of the Rings artwork in the Soviet Union. It was freaking awesome. Nothing woke about it, nothing crazy about it, nothing bad writing or wrong opinions. Like it was legit, just all is a history lesson. That was freaking cool. And I was here for it. But all of these other ones, they were talk about like minorities. There's one about India. Like they didn't do enough translations. I'm like, dude, you got like 50,000 different languages in India. They can't translate all of them. And if you want it translated, translate it yourself. You can speak English and Indian. Translate it. There's like 3 or 4 major languages it's translated in Indian. And she complained about the one that she didn't get. And it's like, the do it yourself. It's not like a lot of work comparative to like doing the entire Legendarium or something. But if you have anybody who knows how to translate and write it down or type or something, just say it. You can do it yourself. Anybody could technically do it themselves. The actual, I want to pull it up, but the Tolkien Society had an actual playlist, and yes, the names are as cringe as you would believe them to be. So we've got The Invisible Other, Tolkien's Dwarf Women and the Feminine Lack, Applying Traumatic Stress and Ecological Frameworks in Tolkien's Middle-earth, The Losoth, Indigeneity, Identity, and Anti-Racism, The Problematic Parameters of Elrond Half-Elven and Ronald English Catholic, Harkening to the Other, Athrobeth Finrod A. Endrith, or Andrith, An Indian's Academic Adventures in Her Quest for the Perilous Realm, Queer Atheists, Agnostics, and Animists, Oh My, and the good one, Hidden Visions, Iconographies of Alterity in Soviet Bloc Illustrations of Lord of the Rings. That one's a really good one. It's actually got the least amount of views, ironically, which is kind of, or some of the least amount of views, which is kind of depressing. Questions of caste or the caste system in The Lord of the Rings and its multiple Chinese translations, an analysis of fan fiction representation within the Tolkien fan community, destabilizing cis-hetero amatonormativity in the works of Tolkien. Might be, I think you probably spelled that wrong. Translation as a means of representation and diversity, projecting Indian myths, culture, and history onto Tolkien's worlds, the problem of pain, portraying physical disability in Tolkien's. These are legit things. Like,
You know, all this talk, it reminds me of that clip you shared earlier.
Oh, sounds about
Yeah,
right.
because I feel
You
like
might call this a trans. Come on, finish it.
segue.
It's a segue.
This we're talking about this.
Transition is what I was going with. But yes,
I know. I just chose segue.
segue. You're gonna want to make this full page, full screen, whatever.
There we go. So yeah, this clip
I hope the sound
kind of embodies a lot of those comments, honestly, in the
This-
core element of it.
This is what we call the lack of intelligence.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent. Thank you, Liam Neeson. It's muted.
Scene where two female characters. See, in the original Lord of the Rings films, there is only one scene where two female characters interact.
Does not pass the Bechdel test.
Very
The Bechdel test was a joke, by
It's
the
a
way.
parody. It's literally just a parody.
And people decided to take it seriously. Like it was
Yeah.
literally meant as just a ridiculous joke to make fun of this shit.
Don't you love when people like create something and then they're like, no, I was just joking. It's not meant to be taken seriously. And everybody from there on just takes it seriously for the rest of all eternity.
It's brilliant.
It's stupid.
I hate it.
I do too.
It muted again? What the fuck?
Well, it's win for you.
Oh my god.
and
Unmute.
Owen's relationship was to the script, and saw how integral like Hera and Owen's relationship
You
was.
might want to
to
go
the
back a
story.
little further.
Phil, and what was your reaction when you read the script and saw how integral like Hera and Owen's relationship was to the story?
It made me really happy. It made me really happy that it's, we're finally telling the stories of especially the Shield Maidens, because they sort of float around in the trilogy.
They don't.
Where?
They don't. Eowyn is the only shield maiden we ever actually see. And the only reason she's even referenced as a shield maiden is when Aragorn says, "You are a shield maiden of Rohan." That's literally the only reference you get in the
They
movie.
sort of float around? No. No. No one's like referring to this mysterious organization of warrior women.
And they're
never
not
mentioned.
And they're not even like a mysterious organization of women. It's literally just women who are the last line of defense when the men are either unable to come or have been wiped out. That's when their shield maidens are actually a part of the picture. And they're not an organization. It's just the women who have to defend their homes. It's literally that simple. They're not a class. They're not a special. They don't have their own sigil. They are just shield maidens. That's it.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna hit that, but they are so important to the lore.
And it also
We're
made
still
me
muted.
excited because there'll be, and it also made me excited, important to the lore. And it also made me excited because there'll be hopefully a generation of young girls who get to see this film and feel like they are seen and heard and empowered by it.
I hate the fact that seen and heard and empowered by it has become such a thing. It's a narcissistic fucking way to view fiction.
Well,
like, it's one thing to like identify with the struggle. I've done videos talking about like anime characters and stuff. Like, okay, well, like, I understand this because I've been through it. That's one thing. But I'm not looking at an anime character being like, oh, he's a dude with a beard. He must be me.
Seen and heard.
Oh my god, representation!
Yay!
It's a shallow and narcissistic way to look at it. And you're reading all those titles off. It reminded me of that because it's talking about all these things that are irrelevant to what makes a character good. Because what makes a character good is not their immutable characteristics. It is their personality and, well,
it's the choices
the content
they make.
of their character, the choices they make, and their morality.
Yeah, it's how they interact with the world and the decisions they make that make the person. Because I can see somebody who's not like me in any shape or form, whether it be color of skin, hairstyle, better looking, worse looking, whatever the case might be. Like, they could be whatever, just polar opposite of me in every way possible. But they decide to do the right thing in the instance, say, that's what I would do. Or, I've done that. And then I can relate to them. That's literally how you're supposed to relate to things. But here's the thing. The whole seen and heard has come from this concept that stories are written for audiences not written for authors for an audience to come in and enjoy. It's no longer enjoying the hearing of it, it's the enjoyment of being it. Now we have to see ourselves in the stories. I am John Wick. I am Qui-Gon Jinn. I am this other thing. And it's like, no, you're not. This is a story that has nothing to do with you. You will have no considerable part to play in this. You won't even have a part to play in this. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's a story. Just like when the newspaper said, hey, here's what's happening in World War II. They didn't say, well, I don't like that because it doesn't have this me as the main star. It's like, it's the newspaper.
And just the
Totally
sheer
yourself.
the sheer narcissism of something like that. Like if you don't want to pay attention to something because it doesn't remind you of yourself, yeah, I think narcissism is the perfect fucking word for that.
But the funnier part is that we're the ones being accused of being narcissists because it's about what we want in the story, because we want the actual like source material to be honored and valued and maintained. We don't want it to be just overrun and tortured and burned to death. And then they're not narcissists somehow by saying, well, it's just fantasy. We can do whatever we want. And like, okay, well, if we can do whatever we want, we can keep it the way it was. Oh my gosh, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I can, and watch me.
Mm-hmm. So, like, to go back to like the early things we heard about War of the Rohirrim when they first started talking about Hera being the main character, I got the same vibes from it because it was.
You mean when she threw a giant piece of meat at a fledgling great eagle?
No, I'm talking about when they first started talking about how they like connected with this unnamed daughter of Helm Hammerhand. I'm like,
yeah, that one.
So a character who has like no content to them whatsoever, just the fact that they vaguely exist.
It's actually
you connect with them because they're a woman.
It's the most sexist thing in the world because the only reason they like her is because she's a her to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
If we said that about a man, like, I like this character. Why? Because he's a dude, not a woman. Be like, that's so sexist. And then, of course, if you say, like, why do you like this character? Well, she's a girl. It's like, that's so sexist because it's not a man. They're very adamant it's not a man because men get all of the. Well, of course, men get it because it's called a war. Who fights in the war? The men. So let's tell a story about the men who fight in the war. Like, that's where it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to talk about people who aren't there. Sorry, I might be getting loud.
No, it's fine, dude. I like loud. Loud is fun. We're American. Loud is funny.
Nanda! Sorry, I wanted to channel my inner Az randomly because he does that and it drives me nuts. But sorry.
But yeah, like I genuinely wanted to like this movie, but like everything we've talked about so far, it's just like it's nothing like terrible to me.
And that's you coming out as a normie.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying.
Imagine how I feel.
My normie perspective, removing this from the lore, is this movie wasn't spectacular. It was just meh. To lore enthusiasts, to people who are very passionate about Tolkien's lore, this is probably an abomination.
What was that? And completely kind of like off topic, but related to this. What was that game? Crunch something. That mobile game.
Candy Crush.
Candy Crush. Candy Crush. Okay, so I would have rather spent the 2 hours and 10 minutes playing Candy Crush on my phone than watch that film. And anybody who knows me knows I absolutely despise mobile games with a passion.
As you should.
As any true gamer would, yes. The only exception is when they put Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic on any device, including phones and tablets. That's the exception, but it's technically not a mobile game even then. It's just on a mobile device. It's case in point. Yeah. No yawning, good sir. That's my job.
Man, I spent all day lifting and milling beams, and then I worked out. I am entitled to at least 2 yawns.
See this?
World's smallest violin. Yeah, you can
stick
it up your.
That's not a violin. That's me grinding your feelings into a ball of nothingness because I don't care.
I am entitled. If the character doesn't yawn like me, I don't want to watch the movie.
It's a horrible rendition. 5 out of 7,000. Or I guess if you're IGN, a 7 out of 10. But
I love that an IGN 7 might be like a very real reference in the near future.
But it's funny because like we've reset the rating system. If you go below a 7, it's literally a negative number now. Like not a just I don't like it number. It's a -1, -2, -3. So it's going the opposite direction because 7 has become the 0 point. Everything's at a 7 and it goes up or down. But anybody who knows anything about how journalism, or is it called journalism, works, for access media, you have to give them good reviews. So if you're giving them less than a 7, you're not going to get access. So if everything they give is a 7 or higher, you're doing it because of access.
I never would have survived if I had actually like gone through with being a journalist. I would have been
better you than me.
I would have been like, this shit's ass. This is ass.
Hey, but here's the thing: is like, if I actually could make time to do it and actually money, preferably full time, and like go out and actually get like gather people, because I couldn't do it myself. I'm not that intelligent in that field. I'm better off in other areas. If I found some actual journalists who were into the culture, like pop culture and stuff, and be like, hey, I want you to write these articles. I want you to tell them how you actually think. Don't worry about anything else. I got everything else covered. And just let them go ham on it. You could do that right now. You could totally do that. It was like, is it Criticless? Was the new thing that Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers is pushing? It's like Rotten Tomatoes.
I haven't tuned into them very much because most of the time, like I'm working on my own shit, so I have not kept up with.
It's okay. You can just say I'm a loser and it's all right.
I watch anime and shit. I don't really tune into the live action stuff.
Okay,
because
when I said I'm a loser, I didn't say like lean into it. I watch anime.
Wrong clip.
He can't even clip right. He watches anime and he can't clip right. Oh.
No, my point in saying that is
I bet Rolo thinks he dodged a bullet for this.
no. We always have fun. My point in saying that is, as far as like keeping up with that stuff, I just don't care enough to watch like those streams anymore. It's all stuff that it's like dead and gone to me, really. Like I don't think that there's no point in people watching them because they do good content and they're in entertaining shows. But for me, I mean, it's literally like I have anime to watch. And I enjoy that more. I have games that I'd rather play.
I listen to them while I play games, and I listen to them while I'm at work because I can't watch anime in those. I can't watch anime while I'm gaming or while I'm at work because I can't read subtitles while I'm doing something else.
Just learn to speak Japanese, dude.
I'll just take over the whole world and force everyone to learn English. Yeah, I have just the same odds doing that.
But yeah, it's like.
Besides, I want to actually visually see it. I don't want to just hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. But as far as the movie goes, like I walked out of there like that was one of the movies of all time.
I don't even know if it was one of the movies of all time.
Like
it was definitely one of the blank movies of all time, but
it'll probably be forgotten well within a year.
Oh yeah, dude, that it's gonna be washed under Rings of Power season 3.
So apparently it had a $30 million production budget and it grossed 4.6 million over its opening weekend. Yeah, it's bad.
and if you pay attention to how it actually like what it actually has to make, it has to make double that. So it'd have to make 60 some million because you have
I
to
thought it was going to require like, well, actually, yeah, you're correct. It's double that. It's 50% more because of marketing and all that.
well, and the theaters.
Yeah.
Because theaters get a certain percentage, and that depends on if it's domestic versus if it's
I thought
international.
it was like 2.5 times the actual budget is what they needed to make in order.
That's
to
on the
do it.
safe side. Like you need to at least make. So if it says the budget was 30 million, you have to make at least 60 million. But that's also a low number to be more safe. Like at the bare minimum, if they make 60 million, they might begin to make a profit. They don't actually make a profit because half of what they get goes to the theaters, and depending on where, if it's like international, there's a bit that goes to them that's a different percentage than when it goes to here. How many theaters it is also changes a lot of things. It's not going to survive.
If
Like, question for you, Mr. Anime Guy, what was the budget for Demon Slayer season 1?
I don't know.
Or just any really well done quality like Vinland Saga or something.
I would assume
the average?
there's a budget of maybe a couple million, like single digit million. Okay.
Yeah.
Because generally when you get these movies, they have like a production budget, like Dragon Ball Superheroes had a production budget, I believe, of like 32 million. That was a movie, but it's also a Dragon Ball movie.
Dragon Ball. They also have ridiculous quality for those scenes.
Well, Superheroes is one of the ones that got trashed the most for using like 3D animation.
Oh yeah, they do that.
Not the Broly movie, the second one with like Gohan and everything. I actually enjoyed that movie. A lot of people can fucking have an issue with me for saying that, but I enjoyed that movie.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people could have an issue with you for virtually anything.
Dude, a lot of people had an issue with me for defending Mushoku Tensei.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people don't understand how things work.
Anyway, let's just put this into perspective. That same budget can be a really big movie. Mugen Train was the biggest movie of its year when it came out. I believe it earned like $450 million internationally. An animated movie.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
a lot of money.
It was insane. It was the biggest movie of the
0.6 billion that Lion King did, but yeah. That's live action.
We talking about like the remake for
the live action that was like all CG.
The CGI action, yeah.
The CGI live action, because imagine going outside and seeing CGI everything. CGI trees, CGI people, animals.
My point being is like it's not like these animated movies don't have a chance to make big money because they can. The issue is that the ones that do make money are ones that come from IPs that are healthy and have been respected. Tolkien's work as of late have kind of had an issue, a tumor that I think we can call Rings of Power.
Yep. Warner Bros. Could have pissed all over Amazon's face and made him gargle it if they had freaking done this right. And if they do the Hunt for Gollum, which looks like they are going for that, if they did it right and didn't put all this other bull crap in it, then that'd be fine. Like they could do it like well, but I don't have any faith they'll do it well.
What if Aragorn gets subverted by a powerful black woman that he follows while hunting Gollum?
More like she freaking leashes him. But it's just like this. It is so ridiculous because the people who made the original trilogy, which will always be remembered as a great piece of cinematic history and what we would call a cinematic triumph, but no one's gonna think
an IGN 10 out of 10,
an absolute triumph 7 out of 10. But no, like there were so many chances, so many times for Warner Bros. To just be like, we're going to one up everybody here. And they put the wrong people in charge. They don't, like, if I was an executive at a company, I would be watching like a hawk. I'm like, I want every freaking script to come in front of me that you guys come up with. Every single one, until you guys can learn how to make freaking crap. If it's a remake, or if it's a established IP or something, I want those scripts on my desk Monday morning. Early, bright and early, like the sun's peeking on the other side of the planet early. Because I'm going to get that to people who actually know their stuff and have them pour over it. And I will pay them the money to do so because it's worth it. And then they're going to tell me yes or no. And then I send it back to you. And every time I send a script back to you that's bad, I'm docking your pay. Because I'm not here to freaking care about your personal opinions about this, that, or the other. I'm here to make money off of your product, and your product needs to be good. And if your product isn't good, we're not going to make money.
Well, that's oppressive for the workplace.
Yes.
And you're hurting their feelings.
I'll hurt them physically if I have to. Like,
whip them hard.
No, that's I was thinking more like a grinding machine that like crunches their bones and pieces. Yeah. Like,
man, no, that escalated.
I mean, I'm not going to go ancient Sumerian and chop off their hands or anything. I'm not that much of a barbarian. But
you're going to feed them to a machine and watch them struggle and die miserably.
It's a meat grinder. It's the corporate machine, literally.
Yeah, I genuinely don't understand how
you can just stop right there.
I mean, I genuinely don't understand. I genuinely don't understand how this movie ended up getting made the way it did. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like,
okay,
you had a cool story.
For $30 million, could you make a 2 hour and 10-minute TV show? Like 24 episodes ought to cover more than 2 hours and 10 minutes, right?
Probably. Hell, dude.
Probably.
Godzilla -1 was
24 episodes at 22 minutes is easily way past 2 hours. That's like 6 episodes. It's 2 hours.
My point is, yes, you could like easily do that. Like, Godzilla -1 was a good movie made on less than 15 million. Well, the director said, I wish I had 15 million.
Oh my gosh. Freaking War of the Rohirrim is 2 Godzilla -1.
And it's somehow only half as good.
Not even half. I wouldn't even give it a freaking 5% as good. Like, I mean, it's insane because okay. A smart person would have been like, we're making an anime. It's not even an anime, it's Western make. It's not anime. Any more than Invincible is, any more than The Last Airbender is. They're not animes, they're Western.
Any more than Arcane is. Shut up, you fucking retards who call it an anime.
It's 3D. It's 3D's American and it is not anime.
Well, there are some 3D anime out there and they look atrocious.
They're not anime, they're atrocious. But no, yeah, 3D's trash and it needs to go away. But if you had $30 million, and we're like, we're going to get some of our voice actors, this, that, or the other, whatever. We're going to get our whole thing together. I mean, they have to do voice actors for anime as well. Still got to pay them. And they're probably more well-recognized voice actors in Japan than they are here in America, but whatever. But you get all these guys and you're like, okay, we're going to have an actual Japanese studio do all of it. They're going to draw everything. They're going to animate everything. They're going to do everything, including their own Japanese voiceovers, so we can have a sub version of it. But we're also going to bring in American, at least English speaking, I should say, voice actors to come in and play the roles of the characters. And then we're going to release that in America, and then the sub we can put in Japan. We could do a sub for Korea, whatever they do for the subs and all that jazz. Or if they want to just do subtitles, they can just do subtitles, whatever. I'd personally prefer to see it in Japanese and English, just so I can have my English, Tolkien stuff, but also I can listen to Japanese because Japanese just simply do it better most of the time. But
yeah, they're far more used to like getting the over the top emotional notes for the voices that
they can hit the emotional points really, really nicely, which I like.
Yeah, like fucking English VAs are prone to flat ass delivery.
Kind of like the lady we just watched and Gaia, what's her face. But if you look at it from the perspective of $30 million, you could have easily, and I mean easily, I would put my house up on a remortgage and bet on this, and I would be a billionaire by the end of it. I would easily make the company $1 billion. Easily. Because it would be so epic. It would be soul token. It would be so everything you could imagine and what you'd want in this kind of a film. You'd have epic battles. It'd be brutal. It'd be big. The music would swell. The music was atrocious. I couldn't remember any of it.
The one bit of music that I actually liked was what they ripped from the fucking Lord of the Rings
Well, the
trilogy.
movies, yeah. They
At the very
reused
beginning, I'm
stuff.
like, oh, that's cool. And then everything else was just kind of.
It was all meh. Like the Rohirrim theme wasn't even in there, which is funny because they have the rights to that, so they could just play it. It's the Rohirrim music. If the whole movie sucks, people will come just to hear the music if they don't have it. Like, it's still good music. I don't understand. But I did like the fact that they're like, oh, this happened and Hera caused it all to happen. I'm like, except the part where Gondor comes in and cleans shop because they have an alliance and all that stuff. Yeah. All of that just happens to not be there. But okay.
Or literally anything else that, Hera had no say in making happen. Like, literally the entire story. It was never supposed to be her making it happen.
There was no Hera. There was no daughter of Helm doing anything other than existing as the daughter of Helm because she's not required to. The author is not required to name every single female character. It does not make him a bigot if he doesn't. It's not. They're not the focal point. We get very few women in Tolkien's works, specifically because they're not going to progress the plot. And if they don't progress the plot, they're not necessary for the plot. So you don't just bring them up for whatever reason. Otherwise, he'd have like 10 billion characters, and we'd know all about all the different female characters, the male characters, and everything, all monsters or whatever. There's no reason for it. So why have it? It's just I get tired really easily from this.
It is a giant bundle of disappointment. And I think I've kind of
that's
covered...
why it's a bigger sin to me than the Rings of Power, is because I had zero hope in it from the get-go, because they immediately were like, this is what we're doing. And I was like, no. War of the Rohirrim, I'm like, you can't screw this up. Apparently I was wrong.
This is a layup. This is easy. You guys got this.
This isn't even a layup. This is a shot.
How did you fucking break both your legs and your arms doing that?
And your neck and every ounce of cartilage, your nose, your ears. You broke your freaking eyebrows, for crying out loud. Like,
what would a broken eyebrow even look like?
That's my point. They managed to pull it off. But like, it's just everything about it was literally the easiest win in the world, especially when it's made by people who made the greatest trilogy ever made. This should have been a cakewalk. This should have been, I can walk faster than you guys can freaking fly an airplane. This should have been the easiest win in the history of cinema, and at least animated cinema. And just been like, yeah, they made a fantastic, because honestly, anime is the strongest medium to tell stories like Wheel of Time, Lord of the Rings, etc. Just because all the freaking weird shapes, scales, and everything, all that stuff can be done drawn really easily. Mm-hmm. It's not difficult when you're at least a decent studio.
It's far easier to animate a massive army than it is to gather a bunch of people to actually make it happen. It's also far easier to CGI all that shit, apparently, because that's all they ever do now.
They had to put women in, well, like beards on women, to put them in the Rohirrim stuff, because they didn't have enough men to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like nobody's caring about that. And no, they're not hidden shield maidens, they're actors. They're extras. But it was like, do you remember when the Mumakil was chasing Hera at the beginning of the film?
Yes. I try not to.
Did you notice that the size of that Mumakil kept changing?
No, I didn't catch that. I was more so focused on the fact that they are terrible at portraying speed in that whole film.
Very poorly. But here's the thing. The Mumakil is technically bigger than the Watcher in the Water. You wouldn't be able to fit it in the mouth of the Watcher in the Water. And here's the other funny thing. The Mumakil just got grabbed and was just like, oh well, I guess I'll die. And it's just like, you're freaking strong. You could easily just turn and just gore it with one of your horns. Like, I mean, yeah, I get it's mad insane from some random poison plot point that they just threw in there for no reason whatsoever.
And if I remember correctly, they said it was rabid, but I'm just like, and it got all the way out here on its own. Like, were there no other people there to like put the thing down? What?
But even if it was rabid on its own, that's only going to prove that it's going to do even more damage because it wants to survive. It's going to go nuts. Like, have you ever tried to grab a rabid animal? It's not going to just sit there and go, I guess I'll die then. No, it's going to try to freaking kill you.
No, I've never fucked with any rabid animals.
That would make you rabid. But, sorry, I just took your words literally.
I'm not into that furry shit.
Don't have to be furry for that.
Same shit, honestly.
I mean, it's got to be Muslim.
Now give them hell.
Isn't life great? But no, when the Watcher in the Water, who should never been there to begin with, grabbed him and pulled him in, it's like, for one, it'd be way too heavy to pick up. Because if you ever take your arm and reach out and grab something that normally you can pick up close to your body and try to pick it up far away from your body, it's very difficult to do. Extend really far, you're gonna push that even further. Then you have to pick up something that weighs an immense amount of weight. It's not hollow weight. That's like freaking gravity weight.
Let me just add one more thing to here too. Like the ecology of that whole thing, like that creature is way too big to be living in that small ass little puddle of water.
This little puddle.
Yeah. Like that's a sea monster kind of creature.
Well, it's in a lake outside of Moria. But the problem is that lake's not just a lake. It's a freaking huge lake. So it can actually live there. We don't know why it's there or how it got there. It just is there. And even Tolkien doesn't really comment much beyond that. It's just that it's there. But it's like, if you're going to do it, at least do it in a way that makes sense. And keep the size comparisons, because they made it like really tiny when the Watcher got it. And then it's just like, oh, I'm going to swallow it whole. The size of the legs shrunk as he was swallowing it. And I'm just like, how much money did you guys spend on this? Well, now I know it's $30 million. You did not buy the right artists.
Well, like my biggest thing, like I had already said, was the issue of speed. That is like the biggest negative to its animation quality, aside from the mocap shit that they did.
Mocap is so stupid. I hate it so much.
Mocap, it's too unnaturally smooth for me.
Well, it's not even that, but like the animation studios did a pretty decent job, all things considered. Yeah. The art studio did a terrible, atrocious job and should be drawn and quartered, to put it nicely.
No, my whole point is like the animation of speed in this, where like Hera's running through the cave or whatever, chasing the ghost, whoever the fuck it was.
That's hell.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
That's why I say whoever the fuck it was, because I have a theory that it's the ghost of the dead bride or whatever.
No, it was Helm.
Okay.
Because they were leading into the whole Wraith Helm. Because did you ever play Shadow of Mordor or Shadow of War?
No, but Rolo talked about how much he liked that, even though it's non-canon.
They're fun to play. Like the concept's interesting because you get to participate in the world without having to worry about it being canon. And we also know it's not canon because they had black Gondorian captains, and that's not canon either. But that's a different story. But they made in Shadow of War, they made Helm Hammerhand one of the Nazgul.
Yes.
But all the Nazgul were accounted for before Helm was even born.
Mm-hmm. No, my point is like when Hera was running in that cave, I was just like, it feels so leisurely. Like in every scene where she's running, it feels so leisurely. She's just like on a casual jog.
A little jog.
I'm like, what? Huh? What?
I mean, sounds about right.
Like,
also sounds like Link from Ocarina of Time.
And the perspective when she rounds the corner was also just wrong. It didn't look good.
Like I said, they did not do a good job, despite everyone seemingly wanting to defend this because of reasons. But it's been a nightmare lately, and I'm getting really tired. I'm tired, boss. I'm tired. But like, it's just there's so much like dealing with the swarms of the normies and being like, you're wrong. I don't have the time or the strength to sit here and tell you why you're wrong, but you're wrong. Because if nobody tells them they're wrong, they're going to keep believing they're right, and they're going to perpetuate that belief. That's like even with the Gunnar situation. Like, I don't even think you could pick whatever you want to be on the Gunnar situation. You could be far left, far right. You could be in the middle. You could be wherever you want. I don't even care. The fact is that if it has been left and the right's trying to take control and they're putting out stuff that people want, they want attractive characters. You can't smash the attractive characters because it's going to push right back into the left all over again. And
well, they've become effectively the same thing they were fighting. It's like,
well, the thing is the whole Puritan nonsense. Like they're like, oh, the Puritans are out here doing, like, no, the Puritans aren't fighting for this stuff, right? Like the concept of Puritan changed from the right and went to the left because the left would be like, oh, you made a pretty woman. How do you hate women? That's not realistic for women's expectations. That's not what they've obviously never seen a real woman in their life. And they're like, but that's actually a motion cap person. That's actually what the person looks like. Somebody hasn't seen a woman before. Because in America, we have this mentality, or at least in the West, specifically America, but we have this mentality that if I could go outside and I don't see these people, then that's not what they really look like. When the rest of the world's like, you guys are this small little country over here, and the rest of us, the billions of us as there are, this is not abnormal size for us. It's abnormal to be not that size because people have beauty standards. People aspire to be handsome or beautiful. They aspire to look pretty decent. No one's looking at you, Crimson. Sorry. But they're not watching.
Silence, you glorified wad of trash, or I'll squash you like a roach.
Bring it, son. Come on, soldier. You want to live forever. But yeah, like the whole point of the argument is like, if we don't say anything, because I've had people come into my comments and they're like, why are you fighting this? Why are you being all this negative? Nobody wants to hear negative, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, if I'm not negative about this, people are going to take it as positive. And if they take it as positive, it's going to be perpetuated. And if it's perpetuated, then we're going to get more of it. And if we get more of it, then we keep going and keep going and keep going. I'm just going to fast forward my voice as we go. But like, it just gets worse. It's not going to get better. They're going to keep scratching at the itch instead of putting the bandage on and letting it heal. That's the whole point, is saying, maybe you don't think that the race swapped art is that big of a deal. And in reality, it's really not, when it's just somebody doing it for themselves or whatever, saying, I think this is cool. But we also don't know their intent. They could be using that as a front, and they could be doing it for extremely racist means. We don't know.
Or they could just be straight up ripping screenshots and copying people's art and selling it for $30. Yep, that's what happened in that case.
Sure, that could be something as well, and that's something that should be called out. But at the same time, going in and saying, yes, this is cool, but that's not accurate, prevents that swing back to the left. It's not anybody trying to rain on your parade. No one's going to a con and doing that to people who are there. People who, like, if you have a black person dressed up as Naruto, no one's going, Naruto's Asian, he's not black. Nobody does that. They just say, good for you picking your favorite character or one of your favorite characters and wanting to play them.
They literally go up, dude, I like Naruto too. Like, well, what's your favorite part of the series? Yeah.
I bet you don't like him as much as I like him. Well, I'm gay for him. You take that back. Like, it's just
okay, awkward Sasuke.
No, that's Naruto for Sasuke. But yeah, like, that'd be more like Gaara, if anything. But you'd have these strange.
Shut up, you weirdo, Fujoshi.
They have these weird ideas of how people, like, if people don't behave that way in cons to people who are just cosplaying. No one cosplaying is seen as the official, like, character representation. But if there was an official character representation at the con and they were not the actual character and it was something else because they race swapped them, they gender swapped them, they whatever they did, they put the stuff on backwards, their makeup was done backwards, Kakashi had the wrong eye covered, whatever the case might be, we would call that out because it's official. They should know better. But if you go to a cosplayer who's just doing it for fun, or it's not the greatest outfit because they don't have the money for it, they don't have the skill for it, they're just doing it because they like to and they love it, nobody cares. And if you're going to make art, nobody really cares ultimately. But when the comments come, like, because remember I sent you, or I didn't send you, I sent Weebs and Waifu group the comparison of the blackwash versus the whitewash. Do you remember that one? They had comments beneath them, and for the blackwash one, they're like, "Oh, it's so empowering, it's so stunning, it's so brave." And on the whitewash one, they're like, "You racist, you," like they're just like.
I covered a lot of that when I went over it Saturday, so there's probably stuff in there like that.
Probably, yeah. But like, it's that kind of a thing. It's like it's only okay if they do it. It's not okay if anybody else does it. But other people are just as passionate and possibly even equivalent or less than racist about it in the entirety of the operation. So it's just like, why can't we comment on this? Are we allowed to comment when Indiana Jones and the Great Circle happens? And is it good quality? Is it bad quality? What are we allowed to say something, not say something? Like, what are we supposed to do? Now, I will say I watched multiple YouTubers play that game, and it was painful because I watched Vara Dark, and I like them, but my gosh, they do not know how to play video games. It's like, it was painful. They're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Why can't I just shoot everybody with a gun? It's like, because it's a stealth thing. He has a gun as a last resort, not as the first one. Like, it's okay. So,
okay, John Wick, this is Indiana Jones.
They call me Indiana John Wick Jones.
Indiana Jones, John Wick.
But like, when you going in,
Baba Yaga Jones.
It's Baba Yaga, but yes,
Baba Yaga Jones.
But like, if you have Indiana Jones hitting somebody in the head and just leaving them on the ground, half the time they didn't even try hiding them; they just left them there. I'm like, the whole fortress is going to be in an uproar in like 10 seconds when somebody walks by, sees the body that you left there. What do you think's going to happen?
That's like the most basic of basic things you learn from like any Assassin's Creed games is hide the fucking body.
But you can literally, you walk over him, it says grab body. Well, why would you grab the body? Well, the option's there because it's a mechanic. If you've ever played a stealth game like Thief, Assassin's Creed, Splinter Cell, whatever the case might be, Metal Gear Solid, It's literally I should also add Hitman in there, but it's literally part of the gig because you don't want them to know you've infiltrated them, so you can do what you got to do and get out of there. And then the other half of the time, they're just like waltzing right behind them, whip something, which the noise alone should have gone. So like AI was bad for the game, but like they whip something and start climbing up a wall with a light on top of you, where anybody within 10 miles can see you. There are people looking in your direction, and nobody says nothing. You're like, I'm not feeling the realism from this game. I thought the voice acting was pretty good. I thought like Troy Baker did a good job. Everyone's like, I hear him in everything. I'm like, I don't even know who this guy is. So maybe I lucked out, but I don't know. I thought he did a pretty decent job as an indie, but there wasn't anything like criminal about it, I guess. But it was very underwhelming as an ending. I'll say that. But all in all, it was watching these people play and feeling pain. It's like, I don't even know if I can keep doing this, because it's like, I'm punching things and you have a stamina bar, and it's like, why am I keep losing? It's like, because you don't block, and when you block him, then you slug him because he's off balance. Well, I am blocking. No, you're kicking them. Well, I'm kicking them, so I'm doing it right. I'm like, no, you have a hand. Punch them. Punch them. Like, do the basic motor skill functions. Like, you may not know how to fight in real life. Maybe you do know how to fight in real life. But in video game, you have to hit the button. That's the only way that you'll do the function. Otherwise, you don't do the function. And they go off and off. And I'm just like, I like these people. I don't know if they're doing a good service necessarily to video games when they're like, I do this for a living. I'm like, I mean, I'm severely questioning that, because Varadart kept going, why am I opening my notebook when I'm being chased by people? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? I'm like, because you're hitting the input button that tells you to do that, which we all do. It's understandable, but trying to act like you don't know why it's happening, it's like, you're not hitting the right button. You probably have in your brain mapped to another game, and you're hitting the button from that game that should, like, the shooting or aiming in this game doesn't translate to this game because they are different schematics for buttons and layout and all that. But maybe that's what you're doing, but trying to like sell people off at like, oh, this is what this is what I do for a living. I am a YouTuber that covers video games or something. And it's like, I don't know how you have an audience at this point if that's what you're doing. But then you got the other YouTubers, Melanie Mac, Jed Pirate Robert, and stuff like that, who are coming in just sideswiping because gooning. And it's like, we're just trying to prevent it from swinging back the way it was. But we're getting called gooners just from Siri's face. Are we just not allowed to do we need to just make Lara Croft a hag to get her back on our side? Like,
why must everything be extremes? What happened to moderation? And what happened to the principle of free speech?
Well, the problem is moderation implies also plain, and plain is not that good either. Like,
what I mean is, not everything has to be one thing. When I say moderation in this case, not everything needs to swing into like the full like origins of the Fate series hentai games. We don't need that. Yeah, Fate started as hentai games.
Like, the actual company who makes them did their own hentai games?
From what I understand, they were hentai games that became really popular, so they made anime out of them.
Fate Stay?
Yeah, stuff like that.
Isn't that the King Arthur one?
Yeah.
Those are hentai?
Apparently they originated from hentai games. The anime are not hentai. But they originated. Anyway, my point in this is, when I say moderation, I'm not talking about like, oh, you only go so far. My point is, not everything has to be the quote unquote gooner stuff. Focus on making good
it doesn't
games.
all have to be no.
Yes.
But we can't even get like mildly attractive characters without somebody calling us a gooner.
Yeah, and that's just the way people like cling to words. It's the same for like pedophile now. And that's been one of my big like sticking points for like the internet is You call a 16-year-old character attractive, all of a sudden you're a fucking pedophile. Like, I don't know if you saw me retweet it earlier, but someone made an art of the two main characters from Don to Don. They're like 16-year-olds. And
Marriageable age in Japan.
one has a shirt that says "I come in peace," and the chick
I
has
posted that
these.
one because I was asking like if these are Don characters, because I've seen the image before, but I didn't know who they were. And I was like, are these characters from Dan to Dan? And they're like, yeah.
Someone
like, no.
considers that pedophilia. That's my big issue with like the way words are treated.
But isn't pedophilia younger than that?
Pedophilia is a primary or exclusive attraction to prepubescent kids.
So
that is the clinical definition. Yeah, it doesn't apply. That's what I'm talking about, the watering down of words. That is why when you mentioned gooning earlier, I'm like, you know what gooning is? It's a very extreme form of masturbation. At least that's what
the answer is. No, I don't know what gooning is because I've never heard it until somebody started using it. And when they started using it, it was an insult. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're insulting. It's like, well, you like pretty women. Yes. And?
Yeah, effectively, the left has swung so far left, they've become the Puritan right.
Well, that's the thing is like when they talk about Puritans on freaking Twitter, I'm thinking like that used to be the Puritan right. Now it's the Puritan left, but Puritan's being used out of definitional sense. So it's like whatever. But now apparently Dread Pirate Robert and Melanie Mack are going Puritan and they're trying to cite something like biblical or otherwise while also liking the stuff they like and claiming that it's not, it's something else entirely. I'm like, no, that's not how that works. But even if you don't want to personally do it and you personally want to speak out against it, which you technically don't have to, because, you know, everyone knows Melanie Mack is extremely outspoken. Like, very. And she doesn't care about your opinion. Not saying she should, but she doesn't. She has her own opinion. She has her own views. I don't know if I necessarily like that because that means the person will never be open to being corrected if they say something incorrect. I'm not saying she's always wrong. I'm not saying she's always right. Just saying that if you refuse to be told, like, no, this is incorrect. It's the same thing when you have somebody's like, well, the Bible says the earth is flat. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. It says right here, 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 here. And it's like, and context just killed your argument because you don't know what you're talking about.
But there's a firmament.
Okay, how do you explain an atmosphere to an ancient Near Eastern civilization? You can't say, well, it's particles. What's a particle? You'll figure it out in a couple thousand years.
Yeah.
And
anyway,
it's ridiculous. So like context matters. I don't think people like Melanie Mack as much as I think she seems to be a fun little individual. I don't think she's open to like correction or anything along that lines. I think people like her that think they're right and there is no other alternative. It's a very dangerous position to be in. Mm-hmm. I'm not always right. There are times I'm just like, well, I was wrong about that and I'll correct myself because it's not that big of a deal. I'd rather not be wrong to begin with, but sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes it just happens that way. But other times, like in my last video, you were freaking right on the money. And F you, I was right. F you, I was right. Like it was vindication because I had comments saying, you have no way to know any of this is real, but like that's why the whole videos because I made 2-part videos, part 1, part 2, mm-hmm. and they explicitly said these were rumored to be, and I said, but I can believe them considering the interviews I've heard through Philippa Boyens, her writing staff, yada yada. They're believable. They're not beyond believability. They are well within the believability rights. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, I'm going to stand by these, at least one of them. And even one of them would have been bad. Turns out every single one was right. And I'm like, vindication. And it's like,
but we're supposed to not be negative about things that we like, not living up to our expectations. Really?
There's, what's the term? Toxic positivity.
Yeah.
Is okay. But non-toxic negativity, it's not okay. Because it's not even toxic to say, I think this is going to go this route and I don't like that because it's not going to help the series or whatever. That's not toxic. But being positive, regardless of stuff. Like, let's say they had actual pedophilia in a movie and somebody's like, oh, it's great. It's like, no, it's not. Like,
Well, then again, we're gonna have to talk about like the content. Is it something to show like someone's an evil piece of shit, or are they trying to promote it as something that should be done by everyone?
Usually, if it's evil, it's extreme, and if it's not, it's like a grooming situation. So that would also, I agree, that would depend on the actual situation.
But yeah, I don't want to get into that conversation because talking about that shit always makes me feel fucking uncomfortable. Because, well,
projecting.
Wood chipper shit, okay? Wood chipper shit.
I know. I have kids. I get the wood chipper jitters.
But yeah, to try and like tie it all up, because I think we've kind of covered everything we wanted to cover, right? Or do you still have
You
more?
tell me. It's your thing. So.
I mean, I've kind of gone.
I covered everything. I like if anybody who's watching, if you want to experience War of the Rohirrim without spending your hard-earned cash, and you want to spend half the time it takes to watch that film, watch my video, War of the Rohirrim spoiler review.
Mm-hmm.
It's all spoilers. It's also a reiteration of my part 1 and part 2 rumors, because people were giving me crap about doing anything rumor. I'm like, what's wrong with doing something rumor? Unless you're doing it all the time, every single time, and have nothing to bounce it off of, like Mike Zero or somebody. But if I'm like, I have heard from somebody who said they had watched this, which obviously they did, because I got this information way ahead of time. I didn't get this like the day of. I got this a while back. And then you had people like Gary from Nerdrotic coming out and said, yeah, it's everything you thought. It's like, they're all right. But apparently you weren't allowed to be right, because being right makes you a bigot or some nonsense thing.
No,
but
I mean, it's...
That'll save you some money and some time, at least an hour. It'll be more entertaining, I think, because that intro is pretty fun.
You're not allowed to be negative. We wanted this to be good. We wanted to be wrong about these things. All of them. I wanted to go to this movie and enjoy it and find that I actually liked it. But when I sat down and actually experienced it, it wasn't good.
Well, it's not even that. It's leading up to it basically told me I wasn't going to like it due to the fact of the interviews. Mm-hmm. It's when they say the quiet part out loud that you're just like, oh. Because if they hadn't said anything to give us even a slight thing, like there was no Hera, there was no nothing, and if they had like totally gaslit us and showed all the shots of Helm, his sons, frail off and everything, we'd gone to a movie like, man, this is gonna be great. We get there like, who the frick is this redhead character? Why is she the main character? Like, that would have thrown everybody off and also pissed quite a lot of people off, because it's literally gaslighting us. And what's the switch term?
Bait and switch.
Thank you. Just, I'm tired, but I got up at 10 o'clock this morning.
10 o'clock this morning?
Yes. Because I was up until like 3. Yeah. It's a week of PTO, man. I can do whatever I want. It's great. But yes, I'm tired.
So,
but I have an infant and a 4-year-old. I am tired.
Yes. So like, it's...
I think
you can't shut down criticism just because you don't want to hear it.
If you shout bigot enough and loud enough, you can definitely shut it down.
No, I'm saying you can't do it just because you don't like it. That's not fair. Like,
they don't care about fairness. They care about winning.
Fair enough. Sorry, winning enough. You can't just label someone a hater just because they're saying
but you can.
You shouldn't be allowed, and you shouldn't.
That's censorship.
You know what? I'm fucking ending the stream. Fuck this shit.
Thanks everybody for coming by.
I wanted to give some closing thoughts to try and tie it all together.
Closing thoughts without being a censorship bigot. Gosh.
I am never inviting this fucker back on my channel ever again.
Famous last words.
Anyway, it wasn't like anyone wanted this movie to fit.
Initially.
And to say that, well,
So
you're just hating on it because it's the popular thing to do.
it's not
No,
popular at all.
that's projecting. If I wanted to do the popular thing, my channel would be nothing but recapping anime and giving no commentary on it whatsoever.
If you wanted
Because
to be
guess what?
weird,
That's
you'd
what gets
chill.
you views in the anime community. But no, I actually like doing analysis. I actually like doing breakdowns and talking about things in a real manner other than just recounting what happens.
I mean, if you did like a recounting video here and there, but not making it like more than like 5% of your actual channel, I don't think that would be that big of a deal, and help you getting views wouldn't hurt, because using that to lure people in to view your other like do a recap and then talk about it on a different video.
Yeah,
They'll come in and then they can watch your reviews and stuff and be like, hey,
I would rather just do a review, honestly.
I'm just saying it's a possibility, and it wouldn't be just bad. It wouldn't.
Yeah.
It would have at least a positive outcome on the entirety of the thing.
That said, I've covered everything I wanted to talk about for this. Is there anything else that we didn't get to that you want to hit on really quick?
Pretty sure my video hit everything in
very
detailed, and I was exhausted that day.
Yeah. In all seriousness, if you really want like a detailed review of the movie, this guy spends, actually it would be, he's way over here.
This way. No, this way.
He's
this
over
way.
This guy spends an hour talking about that movie in very fine detail.
Very detailed. But that's not the only. I have multiple videos about it. The most recent one is the actual review. It's plenty of detail. The other ones lead up to it and explain things about, Philip Aboyan's interview. Which, if you want to see that, go to Nerd of the Rings. He's a shill, so support him at your own risk. But he has the Philip Aboyan's interview, and you can watch it there and just be amazed by how much these people actually hate the source material.
Yeah, and you can find his channel down in my guest here, TheQuestioners. You can find his channel, not Nerd of the Rings.
You can find the shills down below in the description.
You can find my dick down in the description.
I don't want to find your dick anywhere, but yeah.
Anyway, you can find the Questioners channel in the description. Go check out that video. I actually do recommend watching it because it does a good job of covering that movie. And it'll save you the time of actually going to see it, because,
and
to be honest with you, it's not a pleasurable experience.
What, you're not gooning to it? I mean, if anything, I'd be gooning off to it, not going to see it. But yeah, saving my life.
Well, that said, thanks to anyone who tuned in, who listened, or will be listening in the future after this.
And if you were here live, you're cooler than everybody else.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just saying.
So go sub to this guy. He deserves it. He does a lot of detailed coverage on a lot of stuff.
I'm a very pedantic fellow, and I just like to give my opinion from my perspective, and I'm a bit weird. Just throwing that out there. But also the Council of Light, the guys that help me out with the channel from time to time, they do some good work for free, which is nice, but they're always fun to be around, and they always have their own views. We don't always agree, but we do have fun views.
All right. Let's close out with a clip of Roland this time.
Oh no.
Basically, if you don't have a penis, don't hit on me.